Hello guys, this is your friend Naruto Audio Fanfics and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto reset the timeline, and Hinata, Ino, Temari, Sakura and Tenten chose him above all Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. I'm going to be a daddy. Minato Namikaze's voice was shouted from the top of the Hokage Tower. Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze smiled as she looked at Rin and Kakashi while Obito was jumping up and down with his sensei. Think I should tell him it's twins? She asked Rin. The dark-haired Inuzuka chuckled. Nah, keep it quiet, I've got a camera and I want to see his face when you give birth to two. Kakashi shook his head at his sensei's and team's antics, but behind his mask he was smiling at the thought of someday teaching his sensei's son or daughter. On some level of existence beings watched the reset world and many of them smiled. And now, Chapter 1. Minato, it's time. Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze said as she gripped her husband's arm. Now, sweetheart, we've got a demon that's as tall as the Hokage monument at the gate, and you're going into labor now. Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage of Konoha looked at his wife in disbelief. Yes now, she snarled as a contraction hit her. Everyone in the room could hear the breaking of the bones in the fourth Hokage's arm as his wife squeezed hard. Re-en. The Hokage squealed and the dark-haired girl rushed forward and healed his arm, the green glow indicating the chakra used. Weak sensei. She teased. Weak. He whined, rubbing his abused appendage. She's super strong to begin with, and now she's like. Kakashi leaning against the wall shook his head. We could send her out to deal with the Kyuubi. 3 looks promised him pain for that comment. Go. Kushina hissed and Minato grabbed Kakashi and they were gone in a yellow flash. Kushina leaned back as the contraction passed. Men are such weaklings. She teased as Rin checked her over. Are you sure you don't want to go to the hospital, milady? Rin asked. No. With all the injured coming in, it would be chaotic. You can do this, Rin, Minato, and I believe in you. Kushina said with a smile at one of her husband's former students. The Inuzuka girl nodded as she checked the supplies they'd gotten from the hospital months ago when Kushina decided she wanted to give birth at home instead of Konoha General Hospital. Kushina winced at another contraction. Shish. It's okay, little ones. Soon you'll be able to kick the big demon's butt as well. She said, stroking her belly. Looking at Rin, who shook her head at that, Kushina laughed. What do you expect? They'll take after me and Minato. Which means they'll charge in feet first, be loud, obnoxious and flashy. A voice said from the doorway. Tsunade. Rin and the in-labor mother said, seeing the blonde. What are you doing back in Konoha? Kushina asked, wincing at another contraction. The pervert said you were nearly due, and, she looked at Kushina, I wanted to be here for you. She said. Then over her shoulder. Shizune. Get in here. She looked and smiled. Nearly dilated. Why aren't you at the hospital? She wanted to do it here. Rin said, seeing her friend and sensei's wife wince at another contraction. How did you get here? The younger girl asked as Shizune rushed in. We got in just ahead of the Kyuubi. Shizune said as she got her master some scrubs. Jiraiya is with Minato and sensei. Tsunade said. I don't envy them. The fox is cutting through Anbu like scissors through paper dolls. Kushina winced at another contraction and once it passed she put a hand on her belly. Easy boys. She muttered and looked at Shizune. They seem eager to see the world. Hold the line. Damn it. Hold. Minato yelled as all the attacks by Anbu didn't seem to be nothing more than mosquito bites to the giant 9-tailed fox. Why is it attacking? What set it off? Minato muttered. He knew the Kyuubi was to be a guardian of the land, but now it seemed enraged beyond reason. Guy. He called. The bowl-hair-styled Chunin knelt before the Yondaime Hokage. What caused this? The bushy-browed ninja looked up. The Kyuubi was seen coming from the east, the 10th and 13th patrols. The Uchiha. Minato muttered. Well, they claim that the Kyuubi attacked without warning. It's bigger than the monument. Minato muttered over Guy's report. 6th Squad's report is that the Kyuubi was attacked by the 10th Squad first, which provoked it. Idiots. The whole damned clan. Minato muttered. Get me Kakashi. He said, and Guy was gone. Turning, he saw Sasuke Sarutobi, the former Hokage, in his battle armor. Aren't you supposed to be, I don't know, reading and oogling girls? He asked his predecessor with a grin. Bah. Hard to focus on the books with all the screaming, and the hot women are either here fighting, or in the shelters. The third said. Minato laughed. Aren't you supposed to be with your wife? Sarutobi asked, his old eyes weighing in the battle at the wall. I think fighting the Kyuubi is safer than being in the same room with Kushina while she's in labor. Sasuke Sarutobi laughed. Ah, this is the first time, my boy, just think it gets easier the second time around. Minato blinked. More. She's having twins now, old man. The former Hokage laughed. The roar of the Kyuubi told them someone had gotten a good hit in enough to piss it off more as one of its tails slammed into a building, destroying it. I'm glad we managed to evacuate the civilians. Minato said. Sarutobi nodded. The thought of the death toll would have been ugly. Where's my student? He asked. Minato smirked. He's with the 3rd and 29th squads. Minato said, gesturing to an area near the Kyuubi's back leg. He used that swamp of his to keep it from getting any closer. Sarutobi nodded. If we could calm it down. Tried that. Nothing works, and I've ordered Anbu to stop trying to calm it down and instead bring it down. Minato said with a tired sigh. When this is over, if there are any Uchiha alive, remind me to have them hauled up on charges. Minato explained to Sarutobi what had happened and Guy's report. When he was done, the former Hokage looked grim. Add in that Danzo and his private forces are nowhere near here. The whole thing stinks. Minato muttered. Sensei. Minato turned to see a slightly singed Kakashi and Guy land. Kakashi, I need you to go to the office and get the scroll. Minato said. He looked at the Kyuubi, which while trapped by the swamp was still causing major damage with the tails. Sensei. Sarutobi, I need you to remain in command here. I need to get something. Minato turned and found a hand on his shoulder. Sensei, you can't be thinking of that jutsu. We might not have a choice. Minato said to Kakashi. The silver-haired Chunin looked at his former teacher. His lone eye was wide. Let me take your place then. The cost. Just get the scroll, Kakashi. Meet me back here. Minato said, and he was gone in a yellow flash. Kakashi lowered his head. His lone eye was closed in pain at what his teacher and friend was thinking of doing. We'd just talked about that stupid jutsu 2 weeks ago. He can't. Kakashi shushined away while Guy and Sarutobi were distracted by the battle. Come on, Kushina. Dot and push. Tsunade said, and Kushina in paid did. Rin was holding her friend's hand and using a cold rag to wipe the redhead's brow. Shizune moved about getting things ready for the birth. Rin was glad that the Sannin and her apprentice was there. She wasn't so sure her meager skills were enough for this. Kushina pushed again and Tsunade smiled. Congratulations, it's a boy. She said, and after cutting the cord passed the baby to Shizune to clean off. Not done yet. The slug Sannin said as Kushina was already pushing, and nearly a minute later there was a second slap and Tsunade smiled. Another boy. Her and Shizune traded and Tsunade took the eldest and presented him to the tired Kushina. She saw the blonde hair and smiled. Naruto. She said, taking the baby. A moment later he was joined by his brother. Mikahamaru. Kushina said, holding the boys. She was exhausted, but at the same time revitalized. They're beautiful. Rin said. Tsunade cleaned up and was standing on the opposite side. Rin, Tsunade, would you both honor me and my children and be their godmothers? Rin blinked and Tsunade looked surprised. Kushina. The slug Sannin asked. Please. I know Minato was planning on asking Kakashi and Jiraiya. I can't think of anyone better than the two of you. Tsunade looked at the little copper-haired baby and at the blonde, and her expression softened. It hurt to be here with the loss of Dan and Nawaki, but looking at the babies she'd just helped deliver, she felt something in her heel, her heart warmed. I'd be honored, she said. Rin agreed as well. Kushina and Minato had taken her in when her clan had kicked her out when she didn't bond with any of the dogs. The door opened and the four women looked to see Minato standing there. His eyes landed on Kushina and the babies she held in each arm against her. His motions were slow. Say hi, Daddy. Kushina said with a soft, tired smile. Minato looked stunned seeing the babies. He knew they'd be here, but still, something in his mind and heart kicked him hard seeing them for the first time. He approached the bed. Rin, stepping aside, allowed her former teacher to see his wife and children for the first time. They're beautiful, he said. His voice was barely a whisper, his eyes on the babies, and then moved up to meet his wife's eyes. As are you. He kissed her forehead and looked down at his sons, his baby boys, and he was cursing himself for what he was about to do. See, can I hold them? He asked. Kushina smiled and handed him his eldest. This is Naruto, she said. They had agreed on the name. Later Kushina bashed him for informing her the name was from one of Jiraiya's novels. And this is Micah, short for Mikahamaru, she said, handing the copper-haired baby to him. Smile, Rin said, and Minato looked up in time to see the camera flash. You look like the time Kushina told you she was pregnant, sensei, the girl said with a grin. Minato smiled as he looked at his sons. From the distance he could hear the Kyuubi roar, and he wanted nothing more than to stay here, but his village needed him, and it was at times like this he hated when the needs of the many outweighed the needs of the few, in this case his own family. He looked at Kushina. I'm sorry, he said. Sorry? For what, Minato? Kushina asked and watched as he vanished in a yellow flash. Minato, Tsunade and Shizune, who were in the next room, rushed in to see Kushina distraught, trying to get up, and Rin shocked, staring at where her sensei had just been. Minato stopped atop a rooftop. He looked over his shoulder once, then at the babes in his arms. I want you both to know, I love you more than anything, but how can I ask other to give up their very own children for what I am about to do? His answer came from a pair of mewling sounds. Your mother is never going to forgive me, I just hope you can someday. He continued. Gaki. Minato turned to see a battered-looking Jiraiya come up. Hey Ero-sensei, Minato said with a lopsided grin. Say hi to your godson and his brother. Jiraiya, who moments ago had been showing battle fatigue, seemed re-energized as he looked at the babies his student held. They're so tiny, Jiraiya said. This is your godson, Naruto, Minato said, handing him the blonde baby. Blue eyes looked up and Minato saw his sensei looking softly at the baby. You and Rin are his godparents, while Kakashi and Tsunade are Micah's. Jiraiya looked at the copper-haired baby. They are beautiful, my boy, he said softly, then his eyes snapped up. You're not. Minato nodded his head. I have to. Chose someone else's, Jiraiya started. I can't. A newborn is needed. The other children are a month or two old already. Then seal it in me. You are far too old, you would die right away and we'd be facing Kyuubi again instantly, Minato said. Jiraiya looked around wildly as if an idea would leap out of the air at him. Minato, this is the dumbest thing ever. Sealing it in one of your. Actually, I think if I split it between the two, Minato cut him off, and Jiraiya looked shocked at that. While it would take maybe 20 years for one to fully absorb the Kyuubi's chakra, if I split it between both, it should be fully absorbed by the time they're 10. Jiraiya shook his head. Kushina's going to kill you. Minato smiled sadly. I think this will solve that long before Kushina is able to catch up with me. In his arms Micah fussed and he made a shushing sound and kissed the top of his copper-haired son's head. Let me or sensei take your place then, Jiraiya said. Damn it, Minato. Konoha will need you after this. Your family will need you. Jiraiya looked at Naruto in his arms and the blue eyes were looking at him. For Sake, Minato, your sons will need you when they get older. Minato took his blonde-haired son from his mentor, a sad smile on his face. Konoha will survive without me, my sons will have you and Kakashi as well as their mother and godmothers. But I must do this. He looked to where the Kyuubi was destroying sections of evacuated buildings with wild tail swipes. Even from here the screams of Anbu were easy to pick up. Sometimes, Minato said softly as he held his sons. The good of the many outweigh the good of the few. Jiraiya hated when his student got philosophical, and he hated it more when he was right. What about the one? What about Kushina? Jiraiya said. She'll be. Don't you say she'll be fine. Jiraiya snapped. He looked at his former student. She won't be fine after this. Jiraiya spun in place and was pacing. I won't be fine after this. Kami's twisted knickers, Minato. Don't think that you don't matter. Those people. He pointed towards the shelters. Won't give a damn that you and all these ninja have died to protect them. The council will take advantage. Sarutobi sensei will be able to handle them, Minato said. And you're wrong, old man. Kushina will be fine. She's strong, and you will be too. Minato adjusted the babes in his arms. Summon Bunta for me, please, he said after several moments of quiet. Jiraiya looked at him, before biting his thumb and going through the motions. A large puff of smoke and a giant toad stood next to the building they were on. Jiraiya, why have you summoned me? Gamabunta demanded. I asked him to boss. Minato said. Minato, I need a final favor from you. Behind him Jiraiya turned away. Tears were not needed, his student need him to be strong. What? Gamabunta asked. I need you to get me and my sons close to the Kyuubi and hold him off until I finish the seals on their bellies. Gamabunta lowered himself to look at the bundles in the fourth Hokage's arms. Tiny. Are you sure this is what you want, Gaki? The head toad asked. Jiraiya was whispering behind him under his breath, praying for him to change his mind. Yeah, it's the only way to stop the Kyuubi now. Minato said. Gamabunta lowered himself and Minato hopped over to the top of the boss toad's head. Coming Jiraiya. No. I'll see if Sarutobi-sensei needs me somewhere. Good luck, kid. He leapt away. Come on, Bunta. Hold back until Kakashi gets here. The toad took a leap. The twin boys gave gurgles of joy at the sensation. Minato smiled sadly as the jutsu was finished. Shinigami, a moment to say farewell to my sons. He said softly as he felt the death god's ghostly arms behind him. The pulling sensation paused, and Minato took that as confirmation. Looking down at the baskets that now held his sons, he saw the slight glow from the seals on their stomachs. Some minor physical changes were taking place. He saw Naruto develop whisker marks on his cheeks. Micah he noticed that his eyes became golden, and his copper hair became blood red, with white and black fringing. He also noticed the slight tips to both boys' ears. Different, he thought. My sons, you won't ever get to know me. I am Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage, and I am your father. Right now, I am dying. I have left scrolls and I can bet your mother is very pissed at me. He gave a wheezing cough. You will live here in Konoha. You both will grow and learn where your strength and power are needed most. Minato fussed with his son's hair. Always know that I will be proud of both of you. You have a heritage. Minato coughs and he feels weaker. I wish I could. Cough. The people of Konoha can be great, when they wish to be. They just need the will of fire to light their way. You both will grow strong, my sons. I will forever be watching you. In death you will make my strength your own. See my life through your own eyes, as your lives will be seen through mine. He coughed as he felt the Shinigami growing impatient. Be good for your mother, and know I love you both. Minato Namikaze coughed as he felt his soul leave his body. On his knees before his son's baskets, his eyes looked to the sky, a lone star winked. It was fun. He coughed once more. Oh, my. And he was dead. Kakashi landed near his mentor and tears flowed from his eyes. The sky rained heavily upon Konoha during the funeral for the fourth Hokage. All of Konoha turned out to bury their savior and leader. Sarutobi retook his position as Hokage and was speaking to the gathering. We are gathered here today to pay final respects to our honored dead. He said, his eyes going to where Kushina under the umbrella held by Kakashi and surrounded by Rin, Tsunade and Shizune while she cradled her sons to her in their blankets. But it should be noted that this death takes place in the shadow of new lives. The sunrise over a better Konoha our beloved Yondaime gave his life to protect and we each must nourish the will of fire he has passed on to his own children. Sarutobi said, his old eyes seeing Kushina fighting to keep her tears back and rock her children. He did not feel his sacrifice a vain or empty one, and we will not debate his profound wisdom he showed while he was amongst of us. Of Minato Namikaze I can only say this, of all the souls I have encountered in my life, his burned brightest with a will of fire that lit the entire nation with its brilliance. Sarutobi closed his eyes as the sky rumbled as if in agreement. He stepped down from the podium and placed a white flower on the table that had a picture of Minato. It was the day he'd become the fourth Hokage, his huge grin and squinted eyes and the V of his fingers telling all how proud he was of his quest to become leader of the village. Civilians came and placed their flowers and slowly left. Soon the council members, and ninja and their families. Sarutobi stood there the whole time as finally Kushina with her sons came forward. Tsunade held Micah while Rin was hold Naruto after they paid their respects. Damn you Minato. The redhead's voice was rough. She dropped to her knees and Kakashi was there with Jiraiya, but she shrugged them off. You left me. Her voice a whisper. You left me, and your sons. Tears slipped from her eyes. Not only that, but what you did. You used our sons. Damn it Minato, how could you? She ranted and raged, her words barely a whisper, but the amount of killing intent coming off her was scorching the ground. Tsunade and Rin took steps back with the babies. The village hails you a hero. She slammed her hand on the ground, causing a minor tremor. If you were here, I'd kick your, you stupid blonde baka. Kushina. Sarutobi began. Stay out of this or you'll take his place. The redhead snarled, and the third Hokage wisely took 3 steps back and closed his mouth with an audible snap. Kushina turned back to the urn and picture. I am so pissed at you, Minato. You made our sons Jinchurikis. You made them human sacrifices. Well, know this, I won't let them be. You had that philosophy, the good of the many shit. Well, I have my own. The good of my sons outweigh the good of the village, or the world. They will grow up strong. They will grow up healthy and happy. She looked at Sarutobi. And they will be safe from both foreign and domestic attempts. Sarutobi winced as he recalled his effort the other day to have Kushina deny the boys their heritage and birthright. I think Boar and Ox will be out of the ICU in a month. He thought of the 2 Anbu who tried to get between the pissed-off widow and the third Hokage. When she learned that Sarutobi had told the council about what Minato had done, he was lucky that he was still standing. The fight amidst the council about killing the twins had been loud. Tsunade had been there as a representative of her family seat and had told the gathered council if they made a move on Minato's sons, then she would personally level Konoha. Jiraiya from his place near the wall had told them that he would finish what she didn't. Ninja clan heads had agreed. The civilians and a few low-level families had fought on until Sarutobi's killing intent had forced them all into their seats and silence. He told them that any attempt on Kushina and her sons would be considered acts of treason. Shaking his head, he saw Kushina was now looking at Minato's picture. You stupid goof. The redhead said as a sad smile touched her lips. Come on, Kushina. Let's get you and the babies home. Jiraiya said. Sarutobi watched as the redhead allowed herself to be taken away. Sarutobi waited until he was alone except for the personal guard. He stood in front of Minato's urn and picture. She's right. You are a baka and a goof. I've already made mistakes since I've been back in charge. I should never have told the council about the ceiling. He admitted. And Danzo has dug in deeply with the civilian councils. He's maintaining that he did disband Root like you ordered, and the ninja with him are his family's personal guard. Sarutobi sighed. I can't do anything at this time against the Uchiha, my friend. I have a plan, but I need time to find someone to trust. This is a true cluster in the making, Minato, and you left it in my lap. He sighed. I am kicking you as a prelude to what your wife is going to do to you when the time comes. Turning partially away. Rest in peace, Minato. You went before your time. Sarutobi sighed as he walked away, his Anbu bodyguards silent and unseen, while overhead the thunder rolled. 5 years later. Get back here. Kushina's voice carried all across Konoha. At the Namikaze compound, 2 boys laughing raced out the back door, half a step ahead of their bound mother, who they finally managed to sneak up on and handcuff her hands behind her back. Both boys were very proud of that. Their mother had been proud too, until Michihamaru mentioned they lost the key. That led to the current chase, with Kushina swearing she would make sure they wouldn't be able to sit for a month. And no ramen for a year. That stopped both boys in their tracks. Eyes wide, they turned and looked at their mother, who had stopped as well. She looked at them and their wide eyes filled with tears. Don't do that, she said helplessly. Naruto's bottom lip quivered and Micah sniffled. Boys, she said as they continued, the quiver got more noticeable and the sniffles louder. Kushina knew she'd been suckered, but she could never deny them. Just get the cuffs off, she said. Ramen? Naruto asked. Kushina nodded and both her boys grinned as she knelt down with her hands behind her back. I admit, cuffing my forearms one atop the other keeps me from moving them and picking the locks. The scamps are getting good at this, she thought as she felt them fiddling with the locks. Hearing a click, she felt the cuffs come loose and she brought her arms around and rubbed her forearms. So, who taught you two to pick locks, and where did you get the cuffs from? She asked as both boys came around the front of her. They shuffled their feet and looked away. Mikahamaru. The redhead looked at Naruto, who shook his head quickly, and Kushina smiled, already guessing who taught them and gave them the tools. Naruto. She asked the blonde, who closed his eyes and shook his head. They know not to look me in the eye when they lie. Shaking her head, she stood and put a hand on the boy's shoulders. Back in the house, you two. We need to finish your lessons before we go to the park today. Both boys made grumbling sounds, but Kushina was adamant about them learning her clan's ways at the same age she had been. You want to be prepared before you go to the academy, don't you? She asked and got dual nods from the boys. Back in the dojo, she watched as they went through the beginning motions to the Uzumaki style of taijutsu. She smiled as both boys had the same fluid grace her family had, and she knew that once she had Minato's style to that, they would be nearly unbeatable. A knock drew her attention to the door where Rin was. Both boys looked ready to pounce on the woman who they considered an aunt, but a look from their mother kept them in place. Hello Rin, just get off your shift at the hospital? Kushina asked. Her husband's former student nodded, tired look in her eyes. We really need to train more medics, she said, covering a yawn. There is some tea in the kitchen still, and I don't think the boys managed to eat all the rolls or sausage this morning. Rin nodded and passed through, waving to the boys who grinned and waved back. Keep at it, Kushina said as she followed the dark-haired girl across the open courtyard to the main house and then into the kitchen. Haven't seen you all week, Rin, Kushina said. The girl paused, filling her teacup, and sighed. I am sorry about that. A couple of the Anbu squads have been seeing heavy action near the border. Rin looked at her friend. Kakashi's unit been sent out? Kushina asked. Late yesterday, Rin confessed. I don't know why this is happening. Bandits are being organized and they have a lot of nuke nin with them, along with displaced samurai. Kushina sighed. Sarutobi asked me to lead a squad out there. She told the medic. He didn't. Rin was shocked at this. Hi. Tried laying on a guilt trip. I might have split his desk after I was done scolding him like a child. Rin laughed at that. It had been a rough 5 years since Minato's funeral. Many in Konoha knew what the boys held despite the Hokage swearing the council to secrecy. There had been a few attempts over the years on the boys' lives. Kushina or Rin had been merciless in dealing with those that tried. Kakashi's body count was unknown by either woman, but a report on the Hokage's desk listed at least 100 attempts. The bodies were incinerated using kaiden jutsus outside the village walls. Kushina decided to change the subject. I'm taking them to the park after their lessons today. I thought it would be a nice chance for them to play with others now that they're old enough. Rin smirked. You just want to get them to burn off some of that energy. Rin sipped her tea. Sensei was like an Energizer bunny on meth with a side of crack and followed up with speed. Both women laughed. Minato did have stamina, Kushina said with a soft grin. It still hurt, but it was a good hurt now. You want me to come with? Rin asked. No, Kushina said. You get some rest. You've been at the hospital and burning chakra like candy. Besides, Jiraiya is around, and he never misses a chance to spoil the boys. At Rin's looks, she motioned and led the girl into the playroom. Rin paused, seeing the stuffed toads and various wooden toys that looked to have been handmade with a lot of love and affection. He brought those monstrosities the other day, Kushina said, pointing at the 5-foot stuffed orange toads. Gah, and they're orange, Rin said. Naruto loves them. Orange is his new favorite color now that it's come from his godfather. Rin shook her head. And Mika-kun, Kushina pointed to the stuffed slug. Tsunade's just as bad. Rin had to laugh at the competitive nature of the Sannin over their godchildren. And don't get me started on Kakashi, Kushina said. The Uzumaki woman looked at the medic and narrowed her eyes. And that brings me to you. Rin gave her a wide-eyed innocent look. What did I do? Between the stuffed dogs, not to mention the Inuzuka games you've taught them. Rin looked away, a grin on her face. And don't think I don't know about all the times you've taken them to Ichiraku's for those gutbuster ramen paloozas. Rin shrugged. I spoil when I can. Kushina sighed. I can't win, she muttered. 4 godparents, I can't win. At least you know you have babysitters on call, Rin said, heading back to the kitchen. Kushina nodded. I appreciate you all. I saw the Uchiha, the youngest, and he's so spoiled. He was demanding things from his mother. I just don't want my boys to be like that. Rin laughed. Kushina, with Tsunade, Shizune and me around here to counter whatever Jiraiya-sama and Kakashi Baka do, you should know that those boys will be so honorable it won't be funny. Rin finished eating and Kushina saw that the boys were winding down from their katas, and seeing Rin's yawn, she shooed her to her room. You get some sleep. I'll wake you before dinner. A jaw-cracking yawn from Rin stopped their talks. The boys managed to talk a mile a minute as they followed her before she hugged each of them and ruffled their hair and told them to have fun before entering the bathroom for a shower. Kushina looked at the pair of boys who turned their eager gazes at her and she prayed that this wore them out for once. Konoha Central Park. Kushina sat on a bench under a tree watching as Naruto and Mika played on some of the equipment. She scowled as several parents came and took their children away while shooting her son's hate-filled looks. She sighed. Fools. You see this Minato-kun? They treat your sons like they carry a plague. These are the people you died for, you cursed our sons for. Kushina thought to the heavens. She sent a wave of killing intent at one man who had his arm raised as if to strike Naruto. The boys looked up and smiled at their mother, ignoring the man who had been about to attack them, certain in their childlike trust that their mother loved them and would protect them from anything bad. They're growing too fast. Kushina turned. Sarutobi, she said with a look at the third Hokage. They are 5, she said, chiding him. Already. He sighed. Kushina, about before, I am sorry for my words. I didn't mean them. You meant them, old man. Kushina said, cutting him off. But I will forgive you as you are stressed with dealing with the council. He bowed his head. I now regret ever telling those fools about what Minato did. He pulled out his pipe and used a small cadence spark jutsu to start light his pipe. I still say it was Danzo who leaked it. That are your former teammates. Kushina said, watching her children play alone. She scowled as parents whispered to their children to stay away from them. Jiraiya tells me you've started their training. The third said after several moments of silence. It is the Uzumaki way. Once they're older, the perverts have agreed to teach them Minato's style and jutsu. They watched as Naruto used Mika's shoulders to springboard to a low-hanging branch of a tree, then after using his knees to hang upside down, he grabbed his brother's hands and pulled him up. Those two will be a handful once they enter the academy. The third said as he watched them climb higher. They're a handful now. Kushina muttered, standing up and stepping to the tree. Boys. She called and got their attention. Not too high. She cautioned. Yes, Mom. She got back in stereo. Shaking her head, Kushina went and rejoined the Hokage as he enjoyed his pipe. Is there anything I can do to help? He asked as they watched the two boys play. Not really. We're set for money, and their godparents spoil them rotten. Sarutobi smiled as he pulled out a photo. You might want to add that to your collection. She looked at it and saw that it was her son's in the Hokage's office, sitting on the desk. Mika wore the robes while Naruto the hat. Between them was Sarutobi doing paperwork. All three grinned at the camera. Jiraiya left them with me for an hour. Shizune picked them up and took that. I have one on my desk. Kushina smiled. Thanks. She already planned on adding it to the collection. Has there been any word about the girl Orochimaru took? Kushina asked. Anko. The Hokage shook his head. Not yet, but Ibiki is leading a squad. Kushina nodded. He'll find her. When the boys begin the academy, is there a chance I could lure you back to part-time duty? We'll see. But right now, they are my only concern, old man. Kushina said. She then looked at him. You stopping by for dinner? She asked. Regretfully no, the Hokage said, standing up. OJII. Two missiles realized who was talking to their mother and decided to greet the man they saw as a grandfather figure. Sarutobi grunted as he was hugged by the twin boys who were heroes at birth. Naruto-kun, Mika-kun. The Hokage said, giving each boy a squeeze and a smile. Come play. Mika asked. Alas, I cannot. I need to return to the greatest evil to all Hokages. At the twin looks of confusion, Sarutobi was saved from answering by a chuckled answer from Kushina. Paperwork. And a new routine was added. Mornings were lessons that included manners, reading, writing, taijutsu and chakra control. Afternoons were spent in the park. It was on their 9th day visiting the park that the twins made new friends, each in the weirdest way. Stay out of this, freak. The bully said as he shoved the red-haired boy. Of course freaks stay together. Her with that killer forehead, and you, said bully never got a chance to finish as Mika kicked said bully in a place that is not nice to be kicked for the male species. Naruto yelled and threw himself into the group of boys that had decided to defend their friend from Michihamaru. The cross-body block took down 3 of the bullies and Mika, seeing his brother succeed, used a vertical press and started to rain punches into another boy's face with a wild yell. At this point several parents finally paying attention rushed in to save their precious babies from the vile demon brats. I'll show you, you little monster. A pudgy civilian said, raising a hand to strike the boys. The civilian was rather brave as Kushina wasn't there this day. The kunai that pierced his wrist, however, told him that the boys' ninja guardians were Uncle Obito. Naruto said. Itachi. Mikahamaru said to the genin that was with his Junin cousin/instructor. All of you idiots clear out. Obito hissed, a pair of kunai in his left hand ready to be thrown, his right hand behind his back ready to draw his sword. Naruto and Mika looked on as the pink-haired girl was dragged away by her mother. She looked at them, her wide green eyes on them till she was out of sight. You know, playing hero isn't supposed to be that rough. Obito said, giving the boys a grin, and after putting his weapons away he ruffled their hair. Thanks, Obito. The grinning Uchiha turned and smiled. I got distracted helping my cousins with their pups. Rin said as she hurried up. I am so sorry, you two. She said to the boys. We're fine. They did rather well using Obito's unorthodox style. Itachi said, shooting his cousin and sensei a look. Obito smirked. Hey, pro wrestling is making a comeback. Wait till I show them how to suplex pile drive someone. Not around Lady Kushina, you shouldn't. Itachi said. The two were polar opposites. While Itachi seemed to fit the mold of the rest of the Uchiha clan in manners and style, Obito was totally opposite in that he was loud, brash, colorful, he's wearing neon yellow shirt and pants, and sporting a cheesy grin. Where's the rest of your team, Obito Baka? Rin asked, looking around. The grin on Obito's face slowly fell and he sighed. We were delivering supplies to the border patrols and were attacked. If Kakashi hadn't arrived when he did, Itachi and I would be smears on the landscape. Stop calling me that infernal nickname. Itachi said. Faye, I'll get that stick removed one of these days, cousin. Obito said. He looked at the two children before him. Got a hug for your cool uncle. Both boys did just that. Where's Kushina? He asked Rin later while Itachi had been dragged with the boys out amidst the park. He protested too much, but the adults could see a warmness there when he spent time with the twins. Stupid council meeting again. Danzo keeps trying to get control of the boys. The medic shook her head. Aunt Sum and the other clan heads are with her. It's the civilian council that's the problem. Obito sighed. Hiyashi Hyuga and my uncle are only playing the fence. I've heard him at home several times bad-mouthing the boys. He's very careful what he says, but Itachi knows. Rin looked at her former teammate. Obito saw her look and waved it away. He doesn't care. He's known them since they were babes like his brother. Obito sighed and fiddled with the goggles around his forehead. Sasuke might be a problem. My uncle has him believing he's a prince and everything is his for the asking. But Itachi is the clan heir. Rin said. Fugaku is an asshole. There are political fights going on behind the scenes. He sighed. I should be helping Kushina-sama, not leading Genin. Rin smiled. Who'd have thought? You a sensei to anyone. Hey, Minato-sensei believed in me. Rin smiled. We all do, Bito. We just give you a lot of shit over your younger years. I did grow up, Rin-chan. He said, giving her a grin. And you became more beautiful. Rin sighed. Obito. I know. You love Kakashi. And he, sigh, I know. But I can't help that my heart is yours. Mika and Naruto spent an hour talking with Itachi and climbing the tree. Kiba had come with his sister and spent time with them. The three boys were soon roughhousing and Hana shook her head. Are they always this wild? She asked Itachi. They are excited to have someone their age to play with. Your brother seems just as feral. Hana smirked. I still say mom found him in the woods. You are related to Lady Rin? Itachi asked carefully. Well, she's my cousin, but dad before he died disowned her as she couldn't bond with any of the dogs. But she is an accomplished medic. An apprentice to the Yondaime. Itachi said, confused. Mom's pissed about his stupidity. It's because of Aunt Rin that I'm learning to be a vet. The two genin watched the three boys roll around and tackle one another. Things were going fine until Kiba bit Naruto. The scuffle left three boys battered with Kiba yelling at Hana to let him go. He wasn't finished, despite the fact his eyes were swelling shut. And I think no more red meat for you, little brother. She said, hog-tying him and slinging him over her shoulder with ease, indicating this wasn't the first time she'd done it. I'm sorry, Hana. They do get wound up and Rin started, but Hana waved her off. It's time we got home anyways. Kiba has lessons with mom. As she carried him away, Kiba called out to the twins, see you tomorrow. which was then echoed by the blonde and red head with huge grins. Rin sighed as she led them home, Itachi heading back to the Uchiha district and Obito helping Rin with the boys. Another friend made was Hinata Hyuga, who with her cousin Neji and her uncle Hizashi were introduced to the Uzumaki Namikaze boys while they were being watched by Obito a couple days after their meeting Kiba. Rin had clinic duty and Kushina had to go to yet another council meeting. Naruto, Kiba and Mika were running around playing a wild game of tag when Naruto literally ran into Hinata, taking them both to the ground. Neji got offended, but his father chuckled and watched as Naruto was frozen, his blue eyes locked on the pale lavender eyes of his niece. Obito, seeing the Hyuga, jogged over. Sorry about that, Hizashi-sama, they weren't watching where they were going. The Hyuga waved the apology away. It's fine. I thought it best to get the children out of the compound and meet someone their own age. He smiled, seeing both children not move yet. It seems Hinata's made an impression on Naruto-kun. Kiba and Mika were bored and hauled the blonde to his feet. Hello, Mika said as Neji helped Hinata up. She blushed. Hello, she said, her eyes dropping. The adults watched as the children introduced themselves. Neji was strict and proper, whereas Hinata was soft-spoken and nervous. Want to play tag with us? Naruto finally asked. He didn't wait for a response as he took Hinata's hand and dragged her along, yelling out, Kiba's still it. Mika scrammed and Neji, smarter than he looked, leapt away as well, leaving Kiba howling and rushing after the now laughing children. Kushina was right. Hizashi muttered. What was that? Obito asked with a grin. She visited last week to talk with Hitomi and she mentioned that it would be good for the children. Obito smirked. She usually is. Minato-sensei learned early on in their relationship that she was right and not to argue within her hearing range. They watched as the children played for hours, Hizashi leaving and coming back with lunch for them all. The children seated together, Hinata and Naruto talking back and forth. They are cute together. The elder Hyuga muttered. Hiashi will have a fit. The old blowhard can stick it. Obito said. Kushina and Hitomi will make sure he keeps his large nose out of it. I love my brother. I really do, but lately he's starting to act more like our father and the council than the person I grew up with. Obito nodded at this. My uncle thinks that the Uchiha have the right to dictate to everyone else in Konoha. With the Uchiha ruling the police force, they have a power wedge that makes things very difficult for the old man. I know Sensei thought of fixing that, but, he shrugged, indicating what had happened that day all those years ago. A yell drew their attention and both adults were running, seeing Hinata on the ground and a group of civilians around the children. Both cursing in their heads at not watching the civilians closer. Hinata Hyuga was timid. She was insecure and her self-worth was non-existent due in large part her father's words. If I had a son, he would not be a disappointment. When her uncle and cousin had told her that they were taking her to the park under her mother's orders, Hinata had actually felt relief of being away from her father's piercing eyes that held nothing but contempt and disappointment. When they arrived at the park, Hinata noticed that most of the people were gathered on the far side, even clustered together, and that confused her. She was just turning when she was struck hard, as if she'd been in a spar with her father. It took her a moment, and when she did, her eyes met the bluest pair of eyes above her own and she suddenly found it hard to breathe. Later in the day, Hinata came to the conclusion that today was one of the best days ever, and nothing would change that in her mind. Sadly, events later that night would have life-altering consequences on Hinata's whole world. Disillusioned and unseen by mortal eyes, Kami smiled as she looked at the children playing. Now to fix another mistake. It was late, the moon hidden behind clouds. At the Namikaze estate, Naruto was finding it hard to sleep. His mind kept going to his new friend Hinata. Something bugged him. He could hear his brother's snores from across the hall, and knew that Mikahamaru was out for the night. He sat up and pulled on his pants and shoes. Mom's going to be mad, but, I need to. He didn't even finish the thought as he slipped out of his room and down the stairs. He paused to make sure that no one in the house was awake, then unlocking the door and slipping away. It took him some time, but he managed to make it to the Hyuga estate that was on the other side of the Naras that lived across the way from the Namikazes, but avoiding the Uchiha police patrols had taken the child time. He remembered his mom mentioning there was some big shot in town over a treaty signing. He was coming around the corner when he was bowled over. The figure went flying and the large sack was dropped, making a squeaking sound. Damn kid. The masked man snarled. Naruto heard shouts and saw Hazashi leaping over the wall. Stop him. He's kidnapped Hinata. Naruto rounded and saw the man snarl and make his way to grab the sack, which meant that it was Hinata. Not my friend. The blonde thought, and he tackled the man around the knees like Obito taught him. Damn it, you little shit. Let go. The masked man said and backhanded Naruto hard. But it did its job, and bought Hazashi the time needed to catch up. He was about to strike, but the man threw Naruto at him. Hazashi was forced to alter his strike, and instead of killing the masked kidnapper, it hit a point that paralyzed him, as he struck and caught the blonde at the same time. Naruto, what are you doing here? Hazashi asked the boy as he set him down. Then, shaking his head, wait a moment. He said and went to the sack and opened it to find a bound and gagged Hinata. He took the gag out and started removing the bindings. Are you okay? Did he hurt you? He asked her. No uncle. I am okay. Her eyes went to Naruto. Is she okay, Hazashi-sama? The blonde asked. She's okay. A bit shaken up. If not for you, the kidnapper would have gotten away. The elder Hyuga said as the blonde crouched next to Hinata. What's going on here? Hiashi demanded. Several Anbu appeared hearing the disturbance. The nin on the ground kidnapped Lady Hinata. I was in pursuit, and thanks to Namikaze-sama here I was able to catch up and. Hiashi looked at Naruto and snarled. Get away from her, demon. Naruto frowned and Hiashi, upset, grabbed him and lifted him in the air. I don't want you near my daughter, you little monster. You did this. He snarled and his hand went to strike Naruto. Hiashi. No. He turned to see his wife and more Hyugas coming up. Put Naruto down, she said as she walked forward. Hiashi did, but his gaze rested on the masked nin next and he dropped Naruto roughly and moved towards the man, his hand ready to strike. Hold it right there, Hiashi. All turned to see the third Hokage along with a very irate-looking Kushina. That man is to be taken to Ibiki. He broke into private property, and kidnapped my heir. I have the right to. Hiashi began, but it was Kushina who cut him off. Drop the injured party, Hiashi. You don't care about your daughter, on the prestige of having an heir. As for the person that kidnapped her, well, he is in Konoha streets. Anbu, take him to Ibiki. Sarutobi ordered. He looked at Naruto, who was with Hinata and her mother, and was going to say something, but Hiashi was incensed seeing the boy with his daughter hanging onto his arm. Damn demon. Get away from my heir. Hiashi lunged and was nearly upon Naruto, but his way was blocked by Hazashi. Enough, brother. No. Hiashi snarled and activated the caged bird seal, and Hazashi went down in pain, clutching his head. Hiashi grabbed Naruto and hoisted him up. I will do what the Yondaime should have done. Keeping you alive is a mistake. Hiashi, stop, his wife said, but he backhanded her. You are worthless. You gave me daughters when you should have given me a proper son for an heir. But don't worry, I will correct that mistake. Kushina, the Hokage, and Lady Hyuga noticed his look at the masked nin. Don't, Lady Hyuga said, but Hiashi went to strike Naruto. He gasped, however, and looked down to see a kunai rammed into his belly. His eyes trailed to the hands holding them and saw they belonged to his daughter. Hi Hinata. The Hyuga heir was shaking as her mother picked her up and Kushina picked up Naruto. The two women hurried the children away, leaving the Hokage and Hazashi standing over Hiashi's body. Get a medic. The Hokage called out. How is he? Kushina asked. He had a seal on him. The Hokage said that it amplifies anger and rage, causes delusions. Hitomi Hyuga said as she sipped tea with her friend the next day. Hiashi is recovering under the Hokage's personal healer, and only I and the Hokage are allowed into the room. She looked at Kushina. Who would do this to my husband? He was a caring man. I have a clue as to who. Think who has to gain with Hiashi either losing face or getting killed. Hitomi looked at her and sighed. The elders. Kushina sighed and looked at her. I was speaking with Ibiki after he reported to the Hokage. The man was the ambassador from Kumo, the one we just signed the treaty with. What? He had orders on him to kidnap Hinata to steal the Byakugan, and he had a map of the compound. What? But that would mean. Kushina put a hand on Hitomi's. He's named 3 elders. They wanted you and your family out of the way. Ibiki just finished with them before we met. Their plan was to poison you and manipulate things towards their favor. Hitomi was in shock. They needed to get power to put someone in the seat on the council that would vote and put issues in their favor. Hitomi closed her eyes. Then they snapped open. Hinata. She's safe. She's with Naruto and Mika, and they have the best bodyguards in all of Konoha. Kushina said. Why am I letting you do this to me? Obito asked as Mika had him hanging from the tree. Off to the side Rin was laughing and even Itachi had a slight grin on his face while Mika, Naruto and Hinata had him suspended from a branch. Because you promised to do anything to help cheer up Hinata-chan. Naruto said with a grin as he jumped down. They were in the park. The sun overhead told them that it was several hours before the civilians visited and that was fine for them as they were about cheering Hinata up, and when the boys suggested using Obito as a target for paint bombs, she had giggled at the description Naruto had told her and agreed. Obito cursing himself for never being able to break a promise. Of course it's a good thing to teach the imps. He thought. Yo, cousin it, how about a hand? Itachi looked at him. I told you not to call me that infernal nickname. He then walked up and corrected Hinata's aim before she could throw the first paint bomb. There. You would have missed by margarine. He said, and she smiled when the yellow balloon filled with paint impacted on Obito's torso. The bright green looking harsh against the yellow of his shirt. The children laughed and the adults smiled while Obito howled about it being his favorite. Then you shouldn't be wearing it on duty. Rin said as she handed a paint bomb to Mika, who got a grin. Mika. Buddy, pal. Come on, who's your favorite uncle? Obito said. The redhead paused, then grinned impishly. Itachi. He said, and with a spin lobbed the balloon, and Obito managed to close his eyes and mouth as the balloon impacted with his face, leaving a bright purple paint. Who filled these? Obito sputtered. Kushina. Rin answered as she used a sweeten jutsu to wash his face off, but leaving the shade of purple there. Naruto and Hinata threw a couple more balloons. Obito was looking like a rainbow covered with orange, blue and red paint. Mika was getting ready to throw when a sound drew their attention and they all turned to see a girl standing there. She had pink hair. She had her mouth covered and they could tell the sound had been the start of a laugh. Hello. Mika said. Hi there. Rin said, coming forward. She recognized the girl from the boys' time at the park as the one who had been bullied by the other kids. Mika saw her and offered her a balloon. Would you like to join in? Hey. Obito protested, but was ignored. I can't. The pink-haired girl said sadly and stepped back. My daddy says I'm supposed to stay away from you. Really? Rin asked. Did he say why? The girl shook her head rapidly. Rin crouched down. Who is your daddy? She asked. Bama Haruno. Sakura said. Rin tried to place the name. It was Itachi who spoke up. A middle-class merchant on the civilian council. He is rather loud. Rin remember him now. He had demanded Kushina hand her children over for execution and called them demons and Kushina the demon's whore. He lives because Kushina was too busy dealing with the bullshit with Danzo. Rin thought. Well, what he doesn't know, she said leadingly. What's your name? Mika asked. Sakura. The girl said and pushed her bangs out of her face. Sakura Haruno. Come on. Uncle O is acting as the target. He led Sakura over and handed her a balloon. Just throw it. Sakura threw it, but it went wide and hit the grass. Obito breathed a sigh of relief. That's a good first attempt. Mika said and gave her another after looking at his brother and Hinata. Both nodded. Here, like this. He said and showed her how to throw it underhanded. Sakura mimicked him and both balloons hit Obito, Sakura splattering his legs. She laughed at the lurid neon green paint. See, fun. Try again, Sakura-chan. The four kids spent an hour throwing balloons before the barrel that Kushina had filled ran out. Lunch. Rin said. Sakura looked sad. You want to come with? We're heading to the ramen bar. I don't have any money. Sakura said looking down. That's okay. Come on, my treat. Rin said and Sakura's eyes said it all. Poor girl. Her father is a merchant and leaves her to run wild while his wife is at the council meetings trying to ruin Kushina's life. Rin vowed this girl wouldn't be alone. And from the looks Mika was giving her, the redhead would make sure his new friend learned to have fun as well. As the group walked away, Obito, still hanging from the tree, called after them. Mika, Naruto, Rin, cousin it. Come on guys, get me down from here. The paint is drying and it's starting to itch. You can't mean to allow them into the academy. One of the civilians said, leaping to his feet, his ponderous girth resting on the table before him. Shut up and sit down. The civilians have no right in ninja matters. Hiashi said. 3 years of seeing a Yamanaka mind healer had done a drastic turn around for the head of the Hyuga clan. The fact is, that the Namikaze twins have every right to enter the academy, and unless you have a real reason not to allow them entrance, then speak up. But if you idiots spew any more trash about them being demons, I will close off your lungs with a Juken strike for wasting our time with your foolishness. Hiashi said. Kushina bowed her head in thanks to him. As soon as that seal was removed, Hiashi was a new man. He actually went to his knees in public and apologized to Naruto and Mika, and then he did the same to his wife and Hinata. After his release, there had been a cleansing of the Hyuga house. The council of elders were executed, and the cage bird, while couldn't be removed, was altered to not cause pain like it had in the past, but to protect the Byakugan, and all members now sported the mark on the backs of their necks instead of the foreheads. Valid reason. They're demons. The fat merchant said. The temperature in the room dropped as the clan heads scowled. Don't you think? Kushina said, her voice going cold, and those that knew her wondered if the merchant was going to be leaving the room in a body bag. That if they were really demons, that by the way you idiots treat them, they would slaughter you all for your actions. Well, the merchant puffed. That if you struck them, they would lash out like the Kyuubi did and level the village. Kushina continued. That's just because the Kyuubi's power was split between them. Another merchant spoke up. Oh, so you're saying my husband was stupid? Her voice went flat. You sing his praise every October and throw a party, but the same time you try and kill his children, when he asked that you morons see them as heroes. The merchants backed up in their seats. Hiashi chuckled, as did Sume Inuzuka and the Inoshika Cho trio. Kushina. The Hokage said softly. There will be no bloodshed in this chamber. The merchants breathed sighs of relief. It's so hard to get the stains out. Drag them outside if you're going to kill them. The merchants looked on in fear. The Hokage stood. If this is all you will do during meetings, then I am afraid I am disbanding the council, until at which time I can pick new councilors who will take their responsibility of doing their job of advising and helping with the paperwork, and not trying to start rumors and hire assassins to kill the children of a former Hokage who died to protect this entire village, while you all huddled in fear in a shelter. The Hokage stood. This meeting is adjourned. The merchants left muttering darkly. Kushina heard the fat one swear it was the Kyuubi brat's fault and he'd get even. Not if I don't kill you first. Kushina thought darkly and took a step towards him, but the Hokage called her back. A moment please, Kushina. She sighed and nodded. Konoha Central Park. Hiashi looked on as his eldest daughter played with the Namikaze twins. His youngest daughter was with her mother, and Hiashi paused to thank Kami every chance he had for freeing him from doing serious harm to his family. His gaze found Hizashi and his son Neji. Neji played with the children, while at the same time acting as a guardian. Hizashi saw his brother and gave a smile. How was the council meeting? Hiyashi's grunt was the answer. The Hokages threatened to disband the council. Hizashi shook his head. The civilians were in rare form, I take it. Same as always. They wanted the boys killed. Kushina will take only so much before there is blood. She was the ruler of Whirlpool before she married Minato. Hiashi looked at his brother. I nearly lost him over that kidnapping. He found the plans by the Council of Elders. It led to a series of executions and changed the way the Hyugas ran themselves. How was their first day in the academy? Hiashi asked. One of the teachers tried to kill the boys. Neji managed to delay it until Itachi and Obito arrived and dealt with the Chunin. Hiashi sighed. Was this one of Danzo's, or was it someone with a grudge? Hizashi sighed. A Chunin who lost his teammates and family during the Kyuubi's attack. He looked at his brother. What are you doing here? Hiashi shrugged. Kushina is with Hitomi and Hanabi. Hizashi smiled. If you wish, I will stay with them now. I just had to check with Obito and Itachi. He nodded, and Hiashi saw the Uchiha cousins in the shade of a tree. Where is Itachi's brother? His father picked him up. He did not want him socializing with the Namikazes. Hizashi said. Fugaku asked me to give you this. He handed Hiashi a scroll. The clan leader unrolled it and after reading it frowned. He can't be serious. What? Hizashi asked and took the scroll and read it. Damn Fugaku. What shall you do? Hiashi took it and looked it over again. Decline. Hinata's already made her choice. He nodded his head and the pair watched as the 8-year-old Naruto caught Hinata and swung her around while she shrieked and laughed. Good. Hazashi said. At his brother's look he explained. Because I'd hate to be around you if you'd agreed to the marriage contract and told Hitomi and Kushina. Hiashi winced. He'd heard his wife and the Namikaze widow speaking about Naruto and Hinata since they first met. I'd ask you to Juken strike me before they found out. Hazashi laughed. You think I would deny them their justice? I'm your brother and clan leader. Hiashi said in mock dismay. Against a woman of Hitomi-sama's stature you are on your own, my brother. Hazashi said. Next day. Konoha's Ninja Academy. Naruto shook his head as he watched his brother talking with Sakura Haruno. The pink-haired girl acted two ways. When her family wasn't around she was friendly and playful. When anyone from her family showed up she would yell and try to hit Mika who would dodge away. Morning Naruto-kun. Hey Hinata-chan. The blonde said with a grin. He saw Neji heading for his own class and gave the older boy a wave and got a nod in return. Mika-kun's going to get hurt. She said sitting down next to him. I know. But he says it's to keep Sakura out of trouble with her father. He's a big merchant and on the council. The Chunin instructor came in followed by Rin. Naruto and Mika waved to their adoptive aunt, sister, bodyguard. Settle down class. The man said. Replacing Kento will be Rin Inu. Uzumaki. Rin said. Her uncle had disowned her and Kushina had adopted her into her family. It was one of the reasons Rin lived at the Namikaze house. Uzumaki. The man said. She's on loan from the medical corps and will be helping us as we continue with the year's lesson plan. Rin smiled disarmingly. Good morning class. She said. We'll be starting today's lesson with the human anatomy. Outside. Give up. Itachi intoned. Never. Obito said. Sai, you're doomed with your obsession. Itachi said to his cousin. HN. Obito said as Itachi watched him sitting in the tree watching the classroom with a spyglass. She's going to kick your. Itachi intoned. Go suck some Pocky. Obito hissed. Besides, I'm making sure Naruto and Mika are safe after what happened yesterday. Itachi shook his head. Rin is in the room, and both boys have their panic buttons. The panic button was put together by Obito. Breaking it open would be like setting off a flare as it was a wad of chakra and once broken it would activate the seal on Obito and Itachi's wrists. So, how's the bastard? Obito asked. He sent an offer the other day to the Hyuga for a marriage between Sasuke and Lady Hinata. Obito fell out of the tree. What? Itachi gave him a look. Do you know if they accepted? Obito asked feeling very nervous for Naruto who thought the world of Hinata and he could tell she thought the same of the blonde. Father was not happy. Itachi said. He's ordered Sasuke to speak with Lady Hinata personally. He seemed to be of the opinion that Hazashi had tampered with the offer. Obito snorted. He needs to be told a lot more. Itachi knew there was no love between his cousin and his father. I told Sasuke that it would be ill-advised. He said that father was expecting a report upon his return home. Obito groaned knowing this was a fight waiting to happen. I hate to say this but your little brother comes off demanding and abrasive. Hell, he sounds like your father and he's only 8. Itachi sighed and had to agree. Sasuke was sounding more and more like their father. You think he will provoke Naruto-kun? I don't think I know it. Naruto and Mika have Kushina's temper when provoked. Itachi nodded. He'd seen the boys over the years. He remembered a year ago when a couple of the civilian boys, a couple years older, pushed them around. They took it. Then the bullies got the idea to push Hinata and Sakura who had been passing by into the mud. The beating the boys gave the older bullies had resulted in the civilian children keeping well away from the pair whenever they were in the park. Children from ninja clans played with them and that suited the pair fine. Your little brother is antisocial. I don't think I've seen him around any of the kids his age. Obito said about his little cousin. Father keeps him around the compound, training constantly in family matters. Obito looked at him. You make it sound like he's grooming him as the heir. He is. Itachi said, his tone even. What? That's bullshit. Has he given a reason why you're not being listed as heir? Itachi sighed and nodded. He's talking of disowning me as I agree with the Hokage and stick up for the Namikazes. Obito snorted. If my family was higher ranked in the clan, you can bet he'd try something with me. Since my folks are dead, it would take the whole clan council to kick me out, and he'd need a better reason than protecting my sensei's family. Itachi nodded. There are times I envy you. Really? Obito asked. Itachi nodded. Huh. Obito responded, then looked at his watch. Man, it's not even an hour. I bet the kids are bored. Probably, but it is required. Obito shook his head. I can't believe they upped the graduation age to 16. He looked up at the second-story window. I mean, I nearly went crazy when it was 11. Needed. Too many genin were dying young. This way they get a better rounded education. Itachi said. Yeah, and not everyone is a prodigy like you or Kakashi. Obito said. How is he doing? Itachi asked. He likes Anbu. Obito said with a shrug. He keeps asking me when you're going to be taking up a new squad. I prefer to stay around here and protect what's important. Itachi said. I found missions to the border or other lands was dull. You. Obito laughed. You're such a softie. I don't seek adventure and excitement like you. Itachi said. True. Besides, the missions I get as a Junin are more than enough. Obito said. Hey, can you see me as a Junin instructor? No. Ah, come on. I think it would be fun. Hey, I know, I can talk with Kushina and see if I can get in when Naruto and Micah graduate and become their instructor. Obito said, bouncing from foot to foot. Itachi sighed. I weep for the future genin. He said blandly and turned away to hide his smirk as his cousin Mock wept at him about being mean. Lunch. Naruto said, bounding out of his seat. Hinata smiled as she followed, bringing the lunch she'd made earlier. Hinata, Micah, Naruto, Kiba, Shikamaru and Choji sat under a tree near the door. Man, I didn't know there was so much to know about a human body. Micah said as he slumped against the tree trunk. Shikamaru was already laying back and doing his favorite pastime and watching the clouds. Choji, who'd made friends with Shikamaru, offered some chips as Hinata opened the box and passed out sandwiches to everyone. Naruto shook his head. And to think Rin-ne-chan said nothing this morning while we were getting ready. Micah smirked. I think it's cool though. How so? Kiba asked. Well, by knowing where everything is and what it does, we can be better ninja. I mean, think about it. I stick you here. I could make you bleed slowly. While stabbing you there will kill you instantly. Or here would disable you. Kiba giggled as his friend poked him in the places indicated. You sound like you want to be a medic. Micah shrugged. His eyes widened. Sasuke's coming this way. The group as a whole looked over and saw that Micah was right. Sasuke was coming their way. He stopped several feet from the group. I wish to speak with Hinata. He said. She's having lunch. Naruto said. He and Micah had met the Uchiha prince several times over the years, and they'd never gotten along yet, no matter how many times Itachi tried. It's personal clan business and has nothing to do with you, idiot. Sasuke said. Naruto was on his feet. Want to say that again? You're an idiot. Sasuke said. I guess the butt kicking I gave you last time wasn't enough. Sasuke said as Naruto moved around the other side of the tree. Naruto-kun, stop. Hinata said. She had an idea what Sasuke wanted. Her father and uncle had spoken to her last night after dinner and told her about the marriage offer from the Uchihas. She remembered her eyes widening and found it hard to breathe, but her father has assured her that he'd declined it. She remembered feeling relief and her mind had flashed to an image of Naruto. What is it you want? She asked. I'd rather speak in private. Sasuke said. If it's about the marriage offer, then there is nothing to say. My father and mother declined. Sasuke's fists clenched. I think we should talk. There's nothing to say. Hinata said. My father has given me final say on who I shall marry. And it's not you. I think it best you rethink that choice. Sasuke said. He made the mistake. He reached down and grabbed Hinata. Naruto's shout and tackle carried them clear over Shikamaru. Naruto wasn't even using taijutsu, he just pummeled Sasuke, his fists flailing. Obito and Itachi had watched it all, and they weren't too surprised when Naruto attacked. They both rushed over to pull the boys apart. They saw the Chunin from the classroom making his way over, and he was closer. This is going to suck. Obito huffed. This one agrees. Itachi intoned as they hurried across the campus. The Chunin instructor grabbed Naruto none too gently and threw him against the tree. He pulled a kunai, and that sealed his fate. Rin appeared behind him, her chakra scalpel slicing his spine in two. She stepped around him. Her eyes were cold. That was cool, Micah said. Obito stopped several paces back. Damn Rin. That was wicked. Tsunade looked into the dojo where the boys were with their friends. Tsunade laughed. You're asking me what to do. It's not funny, Kushina said, crossing her arms. Naruto assaulted Sasuke. In front of witnesses who said the little snot grabbed Hinata after she refused to speak with him about refusing the marriage proposal. Tsunade finished. I heard you the first time. The slug Sanin said. Before Kushina could respond, the gaggle of children rushed out the door laughing. The last ones were her own too, with calls of, bye mom. Tsunade looked at her. Park. Kushina said. Who's watching them? Obito and Itachi are meeting with their family to try and smooth things out with Fugaku. Better off killing the bastard. Tsunade muttered. Hazashi is meeting me there. You're welcome to come along. Kushina offered. Why not? I get to see my godson and at the same time talk with you and hope you can help me with the council. With what? Kushina asked as they followed the gaggle of children. Getting med nins assigned to teams. I tried during the war, but, Tsunade sighed. I'll talk with the others. It's always been a good idea. Minato was laying the groundwork for it while he was in office, but Hiruzen is overworked, understaffed and fighting with Danzo and the civilians constantly as they keep trying to slip in new laws that would prohibit freedom for the boys, some calling for the outright execution of my sons. Idiots, Tsunade said. They reached the park. Hazashi was there with Neji. I figured you were here when I saw the thundering herd. He said, gesturing to where the group of her sons, Hinata, Shikamaru, Kiba and Choji were. She saw a flash of pink indicating Sakura was here. Who's that? Tsunade asked, seeing her godson playing with the pink-haired girl by giving her pushes on the swing. Sakura Haruno. Kushina said. She's Micah's friend, as long as her father isn't around. Hazashi explained and told the Sanin how things went every time the girl's father would come to the park. That's ridiculous. Yet your godson goes out of his way to help her and be her friend. Kushina said. They watched the children play for a while. Lady Namikaze. Kushina turned, seeing an Anbu standing there. Yes. The Hokage requests your presence. Kushina sighed. I'll be there. He said it was of some importance. The strange Anbu said. Go ahead, Kushina. I'll get the boys home when they're done playing. Tsunade offered. Are you sure? Go. See what the old monkey wants. Tsunade said of her sensei. I'll be right there. She told the Anbu, who vanished with a leaf shushin. Kushina went over to the playing children. Naruto. Micah. She called. Both turned and ran up to her. I need to go see the Hokage. At their disappointed faces she continued. Tsunade is here, and she'll escort you home and stay with you until Rin and Shizune finish up at the hospital. Both boys brightened and hugged their mother. Behave, she said, kissing the tops of their heads and leaving for the tower. Hokage Tower. The knock at the door had Hiruzen sigh and slip his book away in the desk drawer, which he closed. Enter. Kushina stepped in and closed the door behind her. Hey old man. Kushina. Come in, come in. The third Hokage said, smiling at seeing his successor's wife. Have a seat, he said. Once she was, tea. Something to eat? No thanks. What's up? Kushina asked. Hiruzen looked at her. What do you mean? You summoned me here. I was in the park with the boys. Kushina. I didn't send for you. The Hokage said. You didn't send an Anbu for me. Then, her eyes widened and she tore out of the office. The secretary watched her go, and was more surprised to see the Hokage following while calling for Anbu to get to the park. Weird, she muttered and went back to filing her nails. Kushina got to the park, skidding to a stop at seeing the once quiet park looking like a battlefield. Anbu wearing the root symbol were laying all over the place. Tsunade and Hazashi were still fighting several of them. Kushina wasn't worried about the Sanin or the second in command of the Hyugas. Her eyes found her children and widened. Micah was kneeling next to the crumpled fur of Sakura Haruno. What surprised her more was Naruto, Kiba, Shikamaru, Choji, Neji and Hinata were standing over the battered and bloodied form of Sakura's father. None of the children looked at the man with anything akin to warmth. The pudgy merchant's face was a mess. Kushina rushed to her children while Tsuruobi, several steps behind with his summoned Anbu, went to the aid of Tsunade and Hazashi, ordering his loyal troops to secure the root members and civilians. Mom. Micah yelled, seeing his mother approaching, his eyes overrun with tears. Help her. Kushina kneeled and ran the basic diagnostic jutsu she learned. What happened? She asked. Micah's eyes were on Sakura. Kushina noted the girl had a couple of bruises and was bleeding from a wound on her forehead. Micah. Her son's golden eyes leapt up to meet her eyes. What happened? We were playing after you left. We'd all started up a game of ninja tag. Her son explained. We didn't see Sakura's father, and saw Sakura had just tackled me and tagged me when he came up and he hit her. Kushina turned to see Naruto standing there. Her other son's eyes were blazing, and Kushina knew at that moment, without being told, that her sons had attacked the man. He hit her so hard. Micah continued. She landed several feet away. She tried to get up, but he hit her again, and then while she was on her knees he kicked her in the head. It was so fast. Naruto said. Kushina saw Hinata next to him take his hand. We attacked him, Mom. Naruto said, his voice low, ashamed. I know you said never attack a civilian, to let an adult handle it, but those masked nin came and demanded we go with them for trial. Micah said, his eyes landed on the broken form of a root ninja. Tsunade and Hizashi-san tried to stop, but they attacked them, there were so many. Kushina nodded. She winced at what the diagnostic revealed. Damn. What? Both boys and Hinata asked. Kushina had vowed never to lie to her children, and there were times she hated making that vow. This isn't the first time he's hit her, it seems. Blue, gold and lavender eyes widened as they landed on the form of the unconscious pink-haired girl. I don't know enough medical jutsus, we'll need your godmother, she was saying to Micah, and watched as the boy rushed across the park that had become a battlefield towards his godmother, who just punted a root anbu into the stratosphere. You too, take these and bind Mr. Haruno. She offered Naruto some zip ties. The boy smirked and went to do as his mother told him. Kushina looked at the girl her red-haired son had befriended. I can't tell them about the seals. I need Jiraiya here to remove them. She thought. I don't know what they do, but they give off a very bad vibe. Kushina. Tsunade. We have a girl here with multiple fractures from past beatings. Also, she looked and saw Micah was with Hizashi, who was leaving the rest of the fight and clean up to loyal Anbu. She's got several seals on her that set off the diagnostic jutsu you taught me. We need Jiraiya to see her. I haven't told the boys that part. Tsunade nodded as Micah rejoined them. Tsunade summoned the green chakra and began to perform, healing the girl's forehead wound. I'll need to get her back to your place. Kushina nodded. Micah watched his godmother intently. She'll be all right, Micah-kun. She reassured him. Will you? He began. Will you teach me to do that? He asked. Tsunade looked at the golden eyes and smiled. Of course. Micah nodded, and his gaze went back to the face of his friend, assured his godmother would make it all better. Sarutobi looked across the park. Owl, badger, sparrow, hawk, ram. He called. Yes, Lord Hokage. Find Danzo, take him to Ibiki. Any route you come across, kill on sight. Yes, Lord Hokage. They intoned. Take 6 squads. He issued the order. He waited till they were gone, his gaze landing on the family that continued to suffer because the idiots in the village couldn't see straight. No more. Hiruzen, Sarutobi intoned. When he'd seen the shattered look in young Mikahamaru's eyes, the aged Hokage felt rage well up. Those eyes and those of his twins had seen too much at such a young age. Rat, Tora, bear. He called, and 3 more Anbu appeared. Find Obito and Itachi. Also send a runner out to the border for Kakashi. Yes, Lord Hokage. Hiruzen, Sarutobi titled the Professor, and the current fire shadow looked around the once peaceful park and knew that things were going to change. His eyes landed on several Uchiha who were standing at the far edge. His eyes hardened as they turned and walked away. The police force has become arrogant and lax. I think it's time I speak with Itachi about his father. The arrival that night of Kakashi at the Namikaze estate that night was like the arrival of a storm. His eyes scanned both boys after giving them both hugs. He looked at Rin, who had returned from her time at the hospital. She pulled him into the kitchen to talk. What happened? He demanded. Danzo and his route in conjunction with several civilians attacked the twins, trying to capture them. Rin said. Where's Kushina? He asked. With the Hokage. Keep your voice down. Tsunade's got a patient upstairs. What the hell? He asked. Sakura Haruno, Micah's friend. Rin said. Her father attacked her when he caught her playing with the boys. Root attacked after they lured Lady Kushina away. Where were Obito and Itachi? Kakashi asked. Fugaku ordered a meeting, she said and nodded at his narrowing eyes. A lot of things were set up today. Yasuki Uchiha, the captain of the police force, was taken to Ibiki by Anbu as he ordered the police force not to interfere. Kakashi shook his head. I'm spending too much time with border patrols, he said, his eyes showing his regret. I'm surprised they still talk to me with the amount of times that I've broken promises of time with them. Rin put a hand on her friend's and former teammate's shoulder. They understand you, Baka. She smiled. You should be proud of your godson. What? Why? Kakashi asked, always eager to hear about whatever the twins had done. Mika's asked Tsunade for medical lessons. What? Why? Rin looked towards the hall where the stairs could be seen. With what happened to his friend, he told me he felt so helpless. Kakashi shook his head, and Rin-ne-chan severed the teacher's spine with that cool chakra scalpel. Mika said, peeking around the door. Get in here, brats. Kakashi said as both boys had been listening. Kakashi knelt before them. You know you don't have to do anything. You have plenty of time. I know. I had a long talk with Tsunade Ba-chan. Kakashi winced. He remembered the day the twins had dubbed her that. She had taken it out on Jiraiya. The boys didn't call her that often, usually when they were in a joking mood and wanted to get a rise out of the slug Sanin. I want to learn. I felt so helpless when Sakura was laying there. Mika said. It took me till I was 17 to learn that. Rin said. That and nearly losing Obito and Kakashi nailed it in there for me. She said, thinking of the war with Iwa and the mission that nearly destroyed their team. A good thing your godmother was nearby. Kakashi said in agreement. I nearly lost my eye. And Obito Baka had to spend weeks in the hospital while she had to rebuild his lungs and ribs. Rin said. And what of you, Naruto? You going to be a medic too? Kakashi asked the blonde. Nah, I don't understand a lot of it, and I think I want to be like dad. Hokage? Kakashi asked. Yep, I'll help you, Mika said, and the boys shared their grins. You both will go far, and not because who your father was, but whatever you set your minds to, you both accomplish. The silver-haired nin said. They turned hearing the door open and close and Kushina walked in looking ready to explode. Lady Kushina, Kakashi said standing. Oh, Kakashi. We weren't expecting you back yet. She said, her temper seeming to dissolve. Hey, yeah, Rin said, realizing it now that her friend, mentor and adoptive family mentioned it. Lord Hokage sent for me. He said. I took several food pills to get here as quick as I could once the messenger told me what happened. I know I should report to the Hokage, but I had to be sure they were all right first. He rested a gloved hand on each boy's head and ruffled their hair, grinning behind his mask at their mock protests. You might want to wait on that, Kushina said. He's with Ibiki right now. They caught Danzo, she said. It took 10 minutes to get the protesting boys to bed. Mika stopped to check on Sakura, who was in a guest room. Tsunade and Shizune smiled and told him she was resting. Kakashi sat at the counter, his mask down as he drank some juice. So they caught him destroying documents and getting ready to flee. Yes, Anbu had to fight their way through his compound. He had nearly 500 private soldiers, all of them wearing that root symbol. Kushina said with disgust. And the girl upstairs? Kakashi asked. Her own family were loyal to Danzo. He hired a seal specialist to apply several seals to her that would awaken a dormant bloodline, giving her multiple personalities. The goal was to turn her into a spy. Kushina shook her head at what parents would do to their own children. So what will happen to her? Rin asked. The Hokage has sent for Jiraiya. He'll come and remove the seals, and he along with Inoichi will see if there is any mental damage. After that, the Yamanakas have agreed to take her in as an adoptive daughter. Kakashi chuckled. Which is a good thing, as we wouldn't want poor Mika to moon over his adopted sister. Kushina threw a cracker at him. Rin had no problems as she smacked him in the back of the head. Think before you speak, Baka. Baka. Since when am I dubbed that? That's Obito's nickname, Kakashi said. Then think before you speak and I won't place you with him. Rin fired back. What else? Kakashi asked. Right now, martial law is being enforced, Kushina said, while Anbu is rounding up the people on the list they've gotten from Danzo. He broke that quickly. Kakashi asked. Ibiki wasn't in a good mood. Seems he was going to go on a date when this all went down. The young woman is leaving Konoha in the morning as she's a merchant. Kakashi winced. And his Nookie time got ruined. I really don't want to know what he was doing to Danzo. Kushina smirked. Well, when I left the old fart had already soiled himself and was giving up names of everyone in his employ and all his spies. Tomorrow the Hokage is going to be rehiring new people for the tower. Kakashi yawned loudly. Get to bed, you big goof. You can report in the morning. Kushina said. Kakashi Hatake blinked his eyes and nodded, realizing he'd pushed himself and now was paying for it. Besides, you know those two will get you up so they can get you to teach them more of those little tricks of yours. Kakashi winced and knew that was a talk he wished he had Obito's excuses for. Micah stood at the foot of the bed quietly watching his godmother check Sakura's vitals. She'll be fine once Jiraiya removes some seals. She told him. Downstairs they could hear Naruto roughhousing with Kakashi and Obito, who'd arrived for breakfast. Why? Micah asked. What was that? Tsunade asked. Why would her own parents do this to her? He asked. I don't know. Tsunade said. Parents are supposed to love and protect their children. Micah looked at his godmother. Teach me to heal. Tsunade handed the first book to him. You will study every book and scroll I give you. You will learn the jutsu I teach you, and you won't experiment without myself or Shizune there. Until I say otherwise, you won't use any jutsu until I've told you you've learned it to my satisfaction. Mikahamaru looked at his godmother over the body of his friend and nodded. I won't fail. Tsunade saw the look in his eyes. She'd seen the same look in Minato's eyes before he'd gone to fight the Kyuubi. Hinata looked at her father and mother. May I go to see Naruto-kun? She asked. Since yesterday, ever since her uncle had brought her home, she'd worried about the blonde-haired boy that was her first and best friend. Hinata. Hiashi began. Take Neji with you, her mother said. Hinata kissed her mother's cheek before rushing off to find her cousin. Why did you allow her to go out with things as they are? Hiashi asked his wife. Because she is worried about her friend. I watched her during her morning lessons. She can't focus until she's seen him. Hiashi looked at his wife. What are you planning? Nothing bad, dear. Just encouraging our daughter to follow her heart. Hitomi said with a smile. You've already planned her marriage, haven't you? Hiashi asked with a resigned sigh. You disapprove? She asked, raising an eyebrow, her tone indicating he better be careful with his answer. Not at all, my love. But they are young. Hiashi backpedaled. Hitomi smiled. And yet, if you watch them together, you'd swear they were a married couple. What? No, there isn't anything beyond hugs and occasional kiss on the forehead or cheek. Hitomi said calmly. But if you watch them, really watch them, both are hyper aware of the other. You ever notice that when we have dinner here or with the Namakazes, they never say a word, but know what the other wants? In the team spars Hazashi and Obito set up, you ever notice when they are teamed up they have flawless defense? Hiashi searched his memories and found what she said to be true. If those seals would have corrupted you, and I would have died as the elders planned, Hinata wouldn't have thought twice about leaving the Hyugas for Naruto, and he'd protect her with everything at his disposal. Hitomi smirked. And considering they're godparents, that's a lot of firepower. Hiashi was glad to be free of the seals. He had sobbed at his wife's knees for how he'd treated her. Very well. When they are of age, he may court her. Hitomi laughed. Sweet Hiashi. They're courting now. When they're of age, I have a feeling that our sweet little Hinata will be engaged. Hiashi had a sinking feeling she was right, but he wouldn't deny his daughters their happiness. Thank Kami that Hanabi is too young for boys. Hitomi laughed at her husband. Hiruzen Sarutobi looked at the list that Ibiki provided. That's all of them. Yes, Lord Hokage. The sleeper agents are separated and we await Jiraiya and Inoichi Yamanaka to remove the seals and check how much mental damage there is. The Hokage nodded. He knew Jiraiya was at the Namikaze compound first. He looked at Itachi, who had arrived this morning looking grave. Ibiki took a relaxed stance and both listened as Itachi filed his report. Damn Fugaku. The Hokage said as Itachi reported what his father was planning. The whole clan agrees with him. All save Obito and myself. Sasuke killed our mother to prove himself to our father. And you escaped? Ibiki asked. No. Obito and I left during the rest of the meeting. I think my father will send someone to kill me or lead me into a trap. The Hokage sighed. This is not good. Lord Hokage, I have a suggestion. Itachi said and told him his plan. The Hokage became grim as Itachi finished his plan. You won't be able to stay in Konoha after this. I know. I ask that you make sure Obito is occupied and won't be there while I do this. Itachi said. The aged Hokage sighed. Very well. He wrote something out and handed the scroll to Itachi. Your orders, and pardon. Itachi sealed the scroll away. Goodbye, Lord Hokage. Itachi said with a bow. Ibiki watched Itachi leave. Is this the only way? Unless you want open civil war. The Hokage said. They both remained quiet as Itachi went to do the one thing that would rock Konoha to its very foundations. He was going to kill his clan and raze the Uchiha compound and district to the ground. Midnight came and at 1 minute after the Uchiha police station exploded, killing the 200 Uchiha in there. Itachi Uchiha moved through the walled-off private district like an angel of death, none were spared. His Sharingan had evolved with the death of his childhood friend when he'd met him after leaving the Hokage's office. They'd talked by the lake and Shisui Uchiha attempted to stab him in the back. Itachi saw the reflection in the water and spun around, grabbing the dagger and in a fluid motion rammed it into Shisui's stomach. He felt his Sharingan change and realized what had happened. He'd unlocked the ultimate form, the Mangekyo. With the death of his childhood friend, his resolve was cemented on what he had to do. As Obito was sent on a mission out of Konoha by the Hokage, Itachi began what would be etched in history as the Uchiha Massacre. The seals on the walls keeping the sound in and anyone without Uchiha blood out. By 12:30 he reached the main house, the few that had retreated were here as a last defense. Why are you doing this? One of his uncles demanded. Why have you locked down the district? Justice. Itachi said. You are all traitors to Konoha and by order of the Sandaime Hokage I carry out the sentence of death. Itachi said, his swords oozing blood of his kin. Why did you betray us, Itachi? You had the potential to be the greatest. His uncle tried again. If being great means betraying the village, attacking innocent boys that are heroes of the entire village. Itachi moved before any of them could speak, his katana and short sword blurs, and 6 bodies hit the ground, their eyes wide in shock of being killed by one of their own clan. Itachi sighed as he looked at the gate that led to a place he used to call home in his younger days. He wiped his swords off on the dead clothes and sheathed them before opening the gate. His determination hardened when he thought of his mother being killed earlier at the hand of his younger brother. I'm sorry, Sasuke. You can't live, not after this. Itachi thought, begging for forgiveness as he moved towards the house, where his father and brother waited. Invisible to all mortals, Kami allowed tears to flow freely as she watched the Shinigami claiming the souls of the dead Uchiha. This is one thing that must be, no matter how many times and ways I look at it. She said sadly as her eyes recorded the death of Fugaku Uchiha and the death of Sasuke Uchiha, neither able to stand up to the Mangekyo Sharingan that Itachi possessed. She watched as Itachi howled as pain and anguish to the sky, his eyes weeping tears of blood as he blew out the back wall of the Uchiha home with the black fire and left Konoha. Life changed a bit with the Uchiha massacre. Obito, the last Uchiha, refused to believe the call for his cousin's head and said that should Itachi return, he would question him as the Uchiha massacre was a clan affair and had nothing to do with the council. Naruto and Mikahamaru wept at the thought of Itachi missing, they too refused to believe that he did what the council had announced. Sakura Haruno had changed that day. Jiraiya's removal of the seals had released her and she woke, sobbing about how she mistreated her friend. Micah had been hugged till he turned blue by the pink-haired girl who swore she would be the best friend ever and no matter what anyone said she would stand by Micah and Naruto no matter what. Sakura's home life had altered as well. She was now living at the Yamanakas as both her parents had been indicated in Danzo's plots and schemes. The Haruno clan had been broken that day, 30 adults and 15 teenagers had been sent to Ibiki and later executed. The children had been fostered amongst other families and clans. Kushina's opposition in the council had vanished the night of the massacre. Between the roundup of Danzo's allies and the death of the Uchiha clan cemented the safety of her children for now in Konoha. The coming years at the academy would push them in new and interesting ways. 13-year-old Mikahamaru groaned as he dragged himself out of his godmother's classroom. His whole body was sore and he knew that he had passed her latest test. He looked up from the ground seeing Sakura standing there waiting. You look like hell, she said as she'd waited as Micah had been asked to stay after by Lady Tsunade. Micah nodded as dropped his pack and slumped onto the bench. She's a taskmaster. Sakura laughed. She treats us girls just as tough. Since the night of the Uchiha massacre, the academy has added a med-nin training program. Micah was the only male in the class his godmother taught, and that was after a full day of regular classes as well as training at home. Naruto and Hinata are going to Ino's birthday party, you coming? Sakura asked. Micah shrugged. Unlike his brother, whose training was different than his as Naruto was spending a lot of time working with Kakashi and Jiraiya, Micah found his godmother, Rin and Shizune left him with little free time. Come on. You need to get out a bit more. Sakura said. Sensei gave us all the night off. The pink-haired teen said. Since the day of her beating, she'd changed and more playful. When she learned what her parents did to her, she'd broken down and cried, throwing herself at Micah, shocking the redhead. Now they were nearly as inseparable as Naruto and Hinata, which got them teasing from Rin and Obito and some from Tsunade when she was in a playful mood. Kushina just smiled. Come on. For me, please. Sakura asked, giving him a puppy dog pout. Micah sighed. I'll ask Ba-chan. Over the years, both Micah and Naruto had called Tsunade that more and more. Of course, Jiraiya was stuck with Pervy Sage. Kakashi was dubbed Pervert or Uncle K. Obito was Uncle O and Rin was Nei-chan. Their family was different than most and they knew that, but the boys knew the reasons why. She'll say yes, Sakura said with confidence. Micah wished he could be as assured, but his godmother was a taskmaster and her favorite thing was making sure Micah was the best medic around. Next semester she's going to have us working shifts in the hospital. Micah said as they started to walk. It is kind of exciting. Sakura said. Well, it does give us experience and get us used to injuries. Micah said. Rin Nei-chan is happy her own training is finished and she can have some time off. Sakura laughed. She finally accepted Obito's offer for a date. Micah nodded. We all thought her and Uncle Pervy K would be a couple, but he's doing more away missions with Anbu, and Rin got sick of waiting all the time for him to move on. They saw several villagers looking at them, but ignored them. You know, 3 more years we'll be doing missions too. Sakura said. He nodded. And with both of us specializing as medics. Don't. Sakura said. Hinata's getting the basics. Micah sighed. We're here. He said and Sakura realized that they were at the Yamanakas. I'll see you later. She said and gave him a quick hug. Micah waited until she was in and the door firmly closed before he headed home. Micah saw Naruto was being put through the ringer by Jiraiya who was using mud clones to work with his brother's taijutsu. Going to join us? Jiraiya asked. Nah. Ba-chan's got me learning a different style to go with the Uzumaki style mom taught us. Another style will mess with what I've been learning. Micah said as he plopped his bag down. Where is Ba-chan? An emergency at the hospital. There was a border dispute and a couple of our patrols got chewed up. Jiraiya said as Naruto hit a flying kick then before landing spun and took out another mud clone. He's like your dad, he's fast. Micah smiled as Naruto's lessons were advancing. That's enough Gaki. Jiraiya said and the clones dissolved. Naruto sighed and slouched catching the towel. Well, you still leave your left side open. Jiraiya said. But we're done for today. Naruto sighed and took the bottle of water from the nearby bench. Yo bro. How's med training? Exhausting. Micah said and sat down as Naruto cooled down. I hear you and Hinata are going to Ino's party. Naruto smiled. They were officially dating with Hinata's parents' blessing after she turned 13. Yeah, you and Sakura going. Micah shrugged. I need to see if Ba-chan is giving time off from my lessons. She should. She gave all the girls the weekend off. Yeah, but she doesn't live with them. Micah fired back. Naruto laughed. You ever regret asking her to teach you? Nope. Look at this. Micah said and he formed a chakra scalpel. This is what Rin Nei-chan used on that butthole. Wow. Naruto said and smiled. You sure you don't want to learn dad's jutsus? Micah nodded. I am actually happy learning mom's and Ba-chan's. They feel like they are better suited to me. The brothers relaxed in silence. You know, some of the girls have been asking Hinata if you and Sakura are dating. Naruto finally said. We're not. She's my best friend. Micah said. Naruto shook his head. Baka. What? Naruto laughed as he stood. I'm grabbing a shower. Micah sniffed. And use soap. You worked up a hell of a smell. Naruto laughed as he headed for the stairs. Like Micah, he grew lean and wasn't the shortest in class. He'd grown his hair long like Micah, and Jiraiya taught him his hair jutsus for the shield and attacks. His whisker marks were lighter after their 10th birthday. Naruto remembered that day 3 years ago. Flashback. I'm hot. Naruto complained. Micah was sound asleep right next to him. His hair was soaked with sweat, indicating his own body temperature was high. Both boys had stayed home from school, as they'd woken early in the morning burning up. Kushina was there with cold rags and wiping the boys' brows as she had them on the couch. Tsunade had checked them both over, and Jiraiya was there checking the seal and revealed it was slowly dissolving as it had done its job. It'll be okay, baby, Kushina said as she wiped his brow. I know you're feeling uncomfortable, but Jiraiya says you should be fine by nightfall. Micah whimpered and curled up to his twin's side. Kushina knew that this was supposed to happen, but she never thought it would be painful for her babies. Tsunade came in. Sensei found Minato's notes. She said, taking a seat on the opposite side. They need to be in contact. Kushina was thinking of digging up her husband's urn and kicking the shit out of the ashes as her sons were in pain. Anything else? She asked. By moonrise they'll have absorbed all of the Kyuubi's chakra. It might have a few alterations, but the notes say nothing should show until they turn 16. Kushina growled. Baka. Tsunade nodded. And those will be speculated on. His research, while it was complete about the seal, the after effects later on are all speculation. They won't sprout tails, will they? Tsunade was quiet as she took a rag to Micah's face and brow. I am kicking his when I die, Kushina said. End flashback. Since that day their chakra control was flawless, and also seemed to be never-ending. Micah's hair had become a fuller blood red, the fringe from his childhood had vanished. Naruto's whisker marks had faded a bit, his hair became even brighter yellow. Also, both boys had become adept at hiding to the point that they had their mother call for ambush search and rescue squads when she wasn't able to find them. They also discovered they had dual elements to call on. Naruto had wind and lightning while Micah had wind and water. Naruto sighed as he left the shower, wondering what would happen in 3 years with graduation from the academy and to see if the seal had left any further changes. 16 years have passed since the Kyuubi no Kitsune had attacked Konoha. Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze sighed as she woke with the sun overhead. It took her sleep-addled mind to realize that today was the day she lost her husband, and her sons had been born. Born? 16, Kushina thought, and then sat upright as if hit by a bucket of ice-cold water. She rushed down the hall where her sons' rooms were and threw open the door to Naruto's room and saw him gone. She checked Micah's room and sighed, seeing both boys curled up on the bed. She went closer and saw that both looked restless. It was then that she noticed it. At least it's not tails and ears, she muttered, sitting on the edge of the bed, her eyes looking over her boys for any further changes. Hearing footsteps, she turned to see Tsunade and Rin entering. The slug Sanin's eyes took in the boys' appearances with a glance. Rin spoke. Oh, thank Kami. Kushina agreed as her hand clenched in her lap. Cut it, Naruto said. The change had been that their hair grew down to their ankles and became even brighter. Naruto's whisker marks returned, not that he cared, but when his mother touched them, he realized they were sensitive. Micah looked in the mirror and grinned. I like it, he said, his gold eyes shining in mirth, were a richer gold. Micah now also sported very faint whisker marks as well, they were nearly transparent. Both boys mentioned that their sense of smell, hearing and sight became sharper after midnight. The boys' new appearance made Rin think of her sister and her clan. The hair's not the problem, Kushina assured her son. But what are we going to do with them? All eyes in the room looked at the 2 fox cubs that had been in bed with the boys. Train them like they would if they were Inuzuka dogs, Tsunade suggested. She smiled as Micah spun about with his longer hair. Mom, can I keep the hair? But, Kushina looked at her red-haired son. It will be difficult when you're a ninja, she said. What about a really long braid? He asked. Micah-kun, Tsunade said to her godson. Do you know how hard it is to clean and maintain long hair? No, but I like it, he said. Naruto shook his head at his twin. Shoulder length for me. It throws off my balance. Jiraiya, who had arrived for breakfast, looked on. I'd say as long as mine, kiddo. That way you can use the jutsus I taught you. He looked at Micah. You too. Micah had spent time with Jiraiya over the years learning a few jutsus at his godmother's request. Well, we'll cut your hair, Naruto dear. Kushina said. Rin spoke up with a grin. Then you both get to learn some Inuzuka skills from me. We'll go see Sum tomorrow and ask for help. Today was the twins' 16th birthday and working was not allowed in the household by order of Kushina. Micah smirked, as Tsunade showed him how to braid his hair and maintain it. Girls are going to be jealous, you know. Micah smirked. Naruto shook his head. Sakura's going to go mental. He said, poking at his twin. Perhaps. But wait till Hinata sees the pictures mom took this morning. Micah fired back and blue eyes widened as the whisker-marked blonde turned to look. Kushina smiled. What? You both were so cute asleep with those kits. She said. The two foxes had been sedate as if they understood everything. So, Rin began while the twins were in thought. What are you going to name them? Both boys shared a look. Neither had a clue. Hinata arrived after 9, while Naruto was getting his haircut. Micah smirked as she looked at him and his new hair. Happy birthday, she said, handing him his gift and card. Thanks. Bro's getting his cut. His whiskers are back, he said before continuing on towards the kitchen. She'd spotted his own marks. Hinata followed and stopped, her pale eyes widening at the amount of hair her boyfriend had. Hey Heim, Naruto said as his mother was trimming his hair. The long mound on the table said Kushina had been at this for a while. Morning Naruto-kun. Happy birthday, Hinata said, and with a glance at Kushina, who smiled, leaned in and kissed him quickly on the lips. She put his gift and card on the table. Ah, come back here. Naruto pouted. Sit still, his mother said. Morning Hinata. She said. How is your mother? Kushina asked. She's pregnant, Hinata said. Really? Kushina said with a smile. Hanabi isn't happy. She thought that she was the last. Hinata said, watching as her boyfriend had his hair cut down and styled. It has been a while, Kushina admitted. Hinata smiled. I guess that vacation they went on was more productive than we all thought. She finished with a giggle. So, hoping for a little brother? Naruto asked, closing his eyes as his mother trimmed his bangs. I don't care if it's a boy or a girl. I'm just happy for my parents, Hinata said. Micah snorted. Firecrackers going to be miserable as the middle child. Micah had taken to calling Hanabi that the first time the little girl erupted at him when she was younger and they'd allowed her to play with them. Have you eaten yet, Hinata? Kushina asked. Yes ma'am, she said. So what are you all going to do today until the party? Rin asked, sitting with Micah and Tsunade. Just hang around, the twins said, and Hinata shook her head at how often they spoke at the same time. Are we going to the festival? Hinata asked. We can look, Micah said, sharing a look with Naruto. Rin smiled. Obito and I will be there, she said, mostly for Kushina to let her know the boys would be watched over so none of the villagers got any funny ideas. The two had been dating off and on for some time now. Obito was living with Kakashi. They split the cost of a large apartment, and Kakashi wasn't home as he was leading Anbu teams on away missions. Hinata looked at Micah. Sakura's gonna be jealous your hair is longer than hers, she told the redhead. Not my fault, he said. Tsunade pulled one of the shorter braids on the side. Makes nice handles, she said. Quit it, Ba-chan, or I'll pull your pigtails, he said. Tsunade stopped protesting about that name. She knew it was pointless. Just be glad classes are cancelled for the weak brat. Tsunade's medical class had grown over the years. Micah was in the group that would graduate this year, along with the others. Hinata smiled at the interplay between them. Done, Kushina said and stepped back. She looked at her son and realized how much like his father he looked like. Kami, take away the whiskers and it's Minato. She felt tears in her eyes and was engulfed in a tight hug. She realized it was both her boys. It's okay, Ka-san, Naruto said. We miss him too, Micah said. Kushina had spoken to the boys often about their father, making sure they knew all about him, the good and the bad. Jiraiya too spoke, but usually only the good things, or the bone-headed things Minato did while he was a genin. Today was always hard on the Namakazes. Between the twins' birth, the sealing of the Kyuubi and the death of Minato, it was always emotional. Kushina squeezed them and kissed their foreheads, realizing that they were as tall as she was now. You two stop growing, she said, releasing them. Both chuckled and shared looks. Now, get out of here, and be back by 5. She said. Naruto cheered and took Hinata's hand and dragged her from the room. Micah kissed Tsunade and Rin's foreheads before following, his tail braid of hair flopping about wildly. They grow up too fast, Kushina said. She looked at the mound of hair she'd taken from Naruto, and an idea came to her mind as she picked up several strands and began to weave them together. Tsunade and Rin watching her as she hummed. Months passed quickly and spring was soon approaching. The graduating class was looking forward to being ninja. Micah, Naruto, Hinata and Sakura held the top spots in class. Iruka and Rin continued to teach, both getting their points across and keeping the students interested in and out of the classroom. The time since the twins' birthday had been a trial as the villagers again went to their stupid place and tried attacking the boys and their new familiars. 15 people were executed and things calmed down a bit. As predicted, Sakura went mental seeing Micah's ankle-length hair. Of course that didn't distract her long from the new whisker marks on his cheeks, and Naruto and Hinata laughed as the pink-haired girl turned the red head into a pile of goo as she petted and stroked his cheeks. Hinata had intervened and after a long talk, Sakura returned, a large blush on her cheeks. Another glitch happened before the end of the year when a Chunin named Mizuki tried to frame Naruto and Micah for the theft of the Forbidden Scroll. Sadly, his beating by the boys left him alive, but unable to walk as they showed him that they both had learned the Kage Bunshin when they were younger. Another development that the boys learned of: they both possessed the elements of wind and fire, as evident one night they were messing around with Obito doing a prank and Naruto, who had been sporting a cold, sneezed. The flames reached 12 feet. Jiraiya and Tsunade had taken the boys on a week-long training trip to get their elemental manipulation under control. The villagers again showed that stupid people seemed to breed in large groups as they again tried to attack the boys, this time at school after they returned from their training trip with their Sannin godparents. Obito, Rin and Hizashi had not been happy and 30 people were executed that day. Among them was a wheelchair-bound Mizuki who had started the near riot. Kushina stood with the other parents waiting. She'd been nervous all morning worrying about the genin exam. So much so that she had nearly snapped during a council meeting. Next to her, Hiyashi was smirking. "I'm sure they passed," he said. She grunted in response. Sume Inuzuka was next to her and laughed. "Kushina, they've been at the top of the class the last couple of years. Kiba says that Rin and Iruka have to keep on their toes to keep them with the class." Kushina knew that was true. When her sons got bored, they started pulling pranks. Case in point, she looked at the Hokage monument that yesterday had been painted in bright colors. It had taken Kakashi, Iruka and Obito 6 hours to catch the boys, and that was only because they were hungry and stopped at Ichiraku's to have some ramen. "Maybe now they'll settle down," Inoichi Yamanaka said. He knew both Ino and Sakura would pass. He had planned on going to the bar with Shikaku and Choza, but the wives had made all three go to the academy to greet their children. If Shikamaru tried, he'd be top of the class. Hiyashi said. They all knew the young man had his father's lazy attitude. "Listen to us, a bunch of old hens," Kushina said. A snort drew her attention to Tsunade. "Well," the Senju clan head smirked. "I'm not telling. Just know that Micah is the top medic I've trained." The other parents smirked as Kushina shot the blonde a glare. "Don't you have rounds in the hospital?" "Nah. Came to see my godson. Gave my hours to Shizune," Tsunade said with a grin. Kushina shook her head. "You need to stop taking advantage of her. She's my apprentice," Tsunade said, mock pouting. "Here they come," Hiyashi said. The doors opened and students poured out. Some had sad looks, others grinning like loons sporting brand new hitayates. Hinata was hugged by Hiyashi when she showed him hers. Ino and Sakura were congratulated by Inoichi. Sume practically howled as Kiba showed her his headband. The other parents congratulated or consoled their children. Kushina felt her gut clench as Naruto and Micah were the last ones out of the building. They were shuffling their feet, their heads bowed. Kushina and Tsunade exchanged looks at this. Taking several steps forward, Kushina saw neither boy was wearing a hitayate. It got quiet behind her, but Kushina didn't care, her attention was on her sons. They looked up when they reached her. She saw the spark of mischief and both boys grinned as they pulled out their hitayates. "Ooh," Kushina growled, pulling them both into a hug. "Don't scare me like that." She growled as she held onto her sons, new genin of Konohagakure. Both held onto Kushina as she cried into their shoulders and whispered, "I'm so proud of you both. Your dad would be yelling from the top of the monument. Just like he did the day you were born." The party at the Namikaze compound was loud as several families celebrated together. "So teams?" Kushina asked. "Not sure. Oji-san and Iruka-sensei haven't announced them. We're supposed to be back tomorrow to be sorted," Mikahamaru said as he sat next to Sakura and sipped his drink. "I don't think we'll be together as Mika. Sakura and Hinata-chan all have medic training and Oji-san is always going on about balancing the teams properly," Naruto said around a mouthful of food. Tsunade snorted. He still tries to lie through that excuse. At her looks she sighed. It used to be the rookie of the year paired with the dead last. Usually one kunoichi per team. Mika put his cup and plate down. "But that isn't right. I mean, I bet Sakura, Hinata and Ino would make a very effective team, more than say the old Ino-Shika-Cho combination, as I'm sure that most ninja are now prepared for that trio and if he forms them up like that, they'll get the floor wiped." Interesting thought. They all turned to see the Hokage. "Sorry I'm late, Kushina. And congratulations all of you graduating to Genin." The new Genin bowed and blushed at getting praise from the Hokage. "Can I get you something?" Kushina asked. He waved her off. "I can fend for myself, Kushina. Sit, enjoy the party and your time with the children." Mika looked at the man that he and Naruto thought of as grandfather. "So, Oji-san, any clues about teams?" Hiruzen chuckled. "I'm afraid not, my boy. Iruka is still organizing his recommendations. But with Tsunade's medic program a success, I do believe I need to think about how squads are formed and possibly reform some from last year as well." Next morning, Tsunade entered the kitchen to find the twins a whirlwind of activity. Naruto and Mika were making breakfast, and using chakra to do it as they moved around one another flipping food, plates and utensils. Mika was at the stove. "Order up." He flipped several pancakes into the air and Tsunade watched as Naruto spun, a plate in each hand and caught them. The larger plates were put on the table and Tsunade looked at the size of the pancakes. "I feel my thighs growing just looking at them," Tsunade thought as she watched Naruto getting the toast as Mika loaded up a mound of bacon that would please two Akamikes. "How are the eggs?" Tsunade watched as Naruto spun to check on the oven omelet peering in. "Another minute," he said. He turned and saw Tsunade. "Oh, hey Ba-chan. Morning," she said. Mika smiled at his godmother and poured her a cup of tea and handed it to her. "Have a seat. Breakfast will be done soon." She took her seat. "Where's your mother?" she asked. "Got summoned to see Oji-san," Naruto said. Shizune-chan headed in for her shift at the hospital and Rin-ne-san went home with Uncle O. Mika finished as he put the last of the bacon on its platter and put it on the table. "So, all of this is. Well, we figured a big breakfast would be nice, and besides," both boys paused and grinned. "Leftovers rock." Tsunade laughed, forced to agree with them about that. She hated cooking and it was one of the reasons Kushina had been able to talk her into moving in all those years ago. Mika smacked at her hand as she stole some bacon. "Ba-chan. Oh, pipe down, there's enough to feed several Akamichis," the slug Sanin said. "True." Mika spun around Naruto who put down milk and juice along with the toast. "Jam," he said snapping his fingers and leapt over Mika and the open oven to get to the fridge. Mika smirked as he used chakra to hold the hot pan and get it to the mats on the table. Tsunade smirked. "I see your mother's lessons in the kitchen didn't go to waste." "Are you kidding? When you and Shizune went to Waterfall Village, she had us cooking up a storm, and we were denied ramen until we got it right," Naruto said as he put the various flavors of jam down. "What else?" Mika asked looking at the table. "Syrup," both boys said and both went to the cabinet, but stopped with grins. Mika got it while Naruto sat and started cutting the oven omelet. "What's in there?" Tsunade asked, remembering Shizune liked to add many things to her omelets. "Ham and cheese," Mika said. "You want anything else?" Tsunade shook her head and took a bunch of the omelet and added some bacon. "Some pancakes?" Naruto asked. "I want to be able to work today, boys, not be in a food coma till it's digested," she said. They laughed. "So, any teammates you don't want?" she asked. Both shrugged. She knew they wanted to be on a team together along with their girlfriends, but that wasn't going to happen. All four were near the top of the class, and to heap them on one team would be unfair to the other teams who would then be underpowered. They ate talking about random things, Tsunade enjoying the quiet time she got with them, and over the years she understood how Kushina would refuse tasks outside the village so that she could spend time with her sons. As the head of the family and a council member, she stood in the way of a lot of opposition for her sons as well as for the Hokage. The boys started to clean up. Leave it. I'll do the dishes. You both get to the academy. Both rushed out, pausing long enough to kiss her on the cheek and wish her a nice day. Tsunade smiled. You were right, sensei. It is the simple things in life that are truly the best. She looked at the mound of dishes and frowned. Did they have to use so many? Tsunade sighed and added it up and sighed. Screw it. This looks like a D-rank mission. She sent a messenger slug to the Hokage, smiling at the genin team that would have to scrub out all the dishes. And yet some things in life are worth the cost of a D-rank mission. She muttered, going to finish getting dressed and meet the genin that would be taking the job. Academy. Iruka Yumino stood before the class and smirked as Rin entered late, a slight blush on her cheeks. Her face turned to a scowl when she heard a certain pair making innuendos about where she stayed. Stow it, she hissed, and Naruto and Mika laughed. She heard Sakura's snicker and even a giggle from Hinata. Siblings. She cursed. Now, as I was saying before, Rin-san disrupted us. Iruka said, giving her a grin as well. The Hokage has decided that with the success of the medic program, that the teams need to be reworked. It is with this in mind that the following teams will be trial or test runs. Instead of the usual 3 genin teams, there will be 4 genin partnered with a jonin and a chunin instructor. He looked up at the muttering of the genin. Now, he said. Shino Aburame, you will join the pre-existing Team 9. Their weapons mistress has passed the Med Nin program and you will fill the last slot on the team. Your sensei is waiting for you at the Hokage's office. Shino stood and the slight hum filled the air as he left. Iruka looked at the scroll and continued. Team 1 will be. Iruka droned on with teams 1 through 6 and they left the room with various jonin. Now, I want to congratulate the rest of you, and to prolong your questions, I'm going to do this out of order. Iruka said with a grin to Naruto, letting the blonde know this was payback for the itching powder in the early part of the week. Naruto's head slammed onto the desk with a loud thud. Hinata rubbed his back in consolation. Mika snickered and listened to Sakura as she was going over several medical jutsu she'd memorized. Team 8 will be Ino Yamanaka as the team's medic, and your teammates will be Kiba Inuzuka. A bark and he smiled. Along with Akamaru. You will also be teamed with Choji Akamaiki and Shikamaru Nara. A muttered troublesome was heard from the near comatose Nara, and the crunch of chips from Choji alerted all that he wasn't upset by his team. Iruka smirked. Team 7. Naruto looked around and saw who was left and grinned. Yes. Iruka smirked. As I was saying, Team 7 is Hinata Hyuga, Mikahamaru Uzumaki, Naruto Uzumaki and Sakura Haruno. Rin blinked at that. Wait. 3 medics on one team. Iruka nodded. That's what it says here. And considering all the other teams have medic nin, I'm not sure what plans the Hokage has for these last 2 teams. He didn't list their senseis here either. Iruka continued. Rin blinked at that. What the hell? All the other teams were listed with the jonin and chunin instructors. I don't think so. Obito said. The room was filled with the last few jonin and chunin and they was heavy. Discussion over who was going to be getting the last 2 teams. I do. Kakashi said with a grin. I am better equipped too. Bullshit broomhead. Obito said, ignoring the Hokage and glaring at his best friend. You've been on Anbu until 6 weeks ago. You think you can waltz in here and take a team? I've busted my to get here. And yet you still can barely find a decent pair of pants to wear. Kakashi said, making light of the bright colors that Obito wore. Yeah. Well, I at least have taste. You call that eyesore taste? Kushina, Tsunade, Asuma, Kurenai and the Hokage watched as the 2 friends fired back and forth. Tsunade shook her head as the 2 traded barbs and insults that would suggest they were far from friends. Enough. The pair stopped in mid-word. As the slug Sanin stepped between them, a tick forming on her brow. She waited a moment, then looked at the Hokage. My lord, she said in a very formal tone, which not only caught the attention of her former sensei, but of everyone in the room that knew her. Yes, Tsunade. The Hokage said, sitting back with his pipe, the smoke curling up towards the ceiling. He had a grin forming like he knew what was about to happen. I, Tsunade Senju, one of the legendary Sannin, hereby formally request the Genin team, Cell 7 comprised of Sakura Haruno, Mikahamaru Uzumaki Namikaze, Hinata Hyuga and Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze to be placed under my command. Obito looked shocked and Kakashi sighed. Kushina smirked at this, while the others looked shocked. The Hokage smiled outright. Are you certain this is what you want? He asked. Tsunade sighed. If I wasn't, I wouldn't have spoken up. A Jonin, Anko at the back of the room laughed at the tone that the woman used with the Hokage. Very well, Tsunade. You have your team. The Hokage said. My lord. Lord Hokage. Kakashi and Obito's shouts were ignored. And who will you choose as your second? Tsunade looked thoughtful for several moments. Let me. All eyes turned to see Anko leaning against the wall. What? Obito and Kakashi said. It's not like I have a lot to do in the interrogation department, and I would like a chance to prove I am trustworthy. Kushina nodded at this. She liked Anko. The younger woman had a raw deal at the hands of the council ever since Orochimaru turned. She had trusted her when the twins were growing up to act as their guard when the others were indisposed, and she'd often spent time talking with her outside of village duties. Tsunade thought about it. She could help Sakura. At the looks the others gave her, Tsunade explained. She's a skilled medic, but her ninja training is basic academy. She might excel at book work and controlled condition combat, but I know she won't do well once in the field. Anko might be able to help her there. And I have a few thoughts on what to teach her and Hinata. Across the room, Kurenai looked down. She'd been hoping to get in and help Hinata as she'd been her guard when she was younger. I'd like to help Team 8. Kurenai said. I don't want to be in charge, but Ino can learn to be a genjutsu user along with her family's bloodline. It could help with the Nara and Akamaiki as well, since some of their attacks need the target to be stationed. A genjutsu might aid them. The Hokage wrote it down. Who would like to help Kurenai with Team 8? Kushina spoke up. I would like to recommend Rin Uzumaki. She said. She can help integrate Kiba into the team as well as continue her medic nin duties. The Hokage thought about it and nodded, while Obito and Kakashi actually pouted. Very well. The senseis for Team 7 will be Tsunade and Anko, and Team 8 will have Kurenai and Rin. He stroked his beard. Asuma will join Guy to aid in Team 9's training. Asuma winced and Kakashi laughed. Good luck with that. Obito snickered as he thought of what Asuma would go through with the energetic Guy Maeda. If that is all, dismissed. The Hokage said and waited until the room cleared. He sat back and sighed. What do you think? He asked. Jiraiya stepped from the window where he'd been hiding. Tsunade's team is going to be the strongest, followed by Teams 8 and 9. The Toad Sage said. And with the training I've given Naruto, I doubt that they will be genin for long. He sighed. Mikahamaru, with the training he got from Tsunade, could take a jonin right now. The Hokage sighed. What have you two been doing with those boys? Jiraiya smirked. Spoiling our godchildren. The Hokage sighed. Keep an eye on things. It seems Orochi's spy was caught trying to get into the records room. Ibiki has him under surveillance. He's pretending to be a genin that has failed the Chunin exam 6 times prior. Jiraiya sighed. Anything else? Take Kakashi and Obito with you. I'm sure those two with free time might inspire a prank war with the twins, and I want Konoha in one piece. Jiraiya laughed. I don't know. That prank war they had when the boys were 12. The entire village was painted in silver, orange and bright red and yellow paint. The Hokage said as he recalled the war that they used paint as markers to who did what. I will not allow them to do so again, and with Obito and Kakashi between missions. Jiraiya smirked. Fine, I'll take the big boys out to play. He said. Keep the place running, old man. Jiraiya said before leaping out the window. The Hokage sighed and wondered what Tsunade would do with her team, and he was actually anxious to read what they do. The door to the classroom opened and Micah smiled seeing his godmother enter. Hey Iruka. Rin. She said and looked at her students. Team 7 come with me. She said to their surprise. Kurenai was behind her. Team 8 with me, and you too, Rin. Rin looked surprised. Me, she squeaked. Kurenai smiled. You've been reassigned. Rin sighed. Well Iruka, it's been fun. She said, grabbing her stuff and following Team 8. Ino walked next to her. So, you're still our sensei. Looks like it. I think I see why. I can continue your training in the medical arts and at the same time help Kiba. How? Ino asked. I was an Inazuka before I was kicked out. Kushina adopted me into the Uzumaki clan, but I still keep in touch with my older sister, Kiba's mother. Why were you kicked out? If you don't mind me asking. Ino asked and the others were listening. Soom's husband kicked me out because I didn't bond with any of the dogs in the clan. I showed skills outside the clan and he didn't like that, so he kicked me out. Soom couldn't overturn it since it had been several years, and I have a new family. You mean Naruto and Mika? Shikamaru asked. Yes. They are family to me. I am still related to Kiba and know a lot of the clan's tactics, so I can help him. I also think I can help Kushina with you and Choji, but I'll need to find out what she's doing. Tsunade looked at her team. Anko was sitting on a stump, her arms crossed and waiting to see what a Sannin could teach. Alright, now as your leader, we'll be working on numerous things. Team tactics, expanding your knowledge of jutsus, and I plan to make you 4 better than the Sannin. Tsunade said, sitting on the log as they gathered before her. 3 of you are skilled medics. Naruto's been taught to be an assault unit by Kakashi and Jiraiya. Naruto grinned. And with the fact Mika and Naruto can perform the Cage Bunshin, we're not only a search and rescue team, but with the skills you all know I bet we could be an assault team when needed. What do you mean search and rescue? Sakura asked. Hinata's Byakugan, the boys' enhanced senses and their shadow clones, and with what Anko and I teach you, you'll be able to go toe-to-toe with anyone. Sakura. Me. Tsunade nodded. I believe I can teach you my strength techniques and continue your medic nin training. Hinata will learn some of Anko's snake style and blend it in with the Juken style. The boys grinned at this. Add in the fact these two can also double as demolitionists with some of their pranks, we'll be an all-purpose squad. Tsunade said, and she looked at Anko. Anything to say? Not yet. The mesh-wearing Kunoichi said. We'll be spending the next 4 weeks training hard. Both Anko and I refuse to suffer D-rank missions. Don't we have to do a certain amount of D-rank missions before we can move up to the C rank, sensei? Hinata asked. The older blonde wrinkled her nose. We're going to cheat, Tsunade said. She looked at Naruto and Mika. This is where your shadow clones come in. You'll make 2 squads and henge them to look like the team. I'll get the missions from the office and have the clones do them while we train. But aren't the D-rank missions important? Sakura asked. Mika and Naruto scoffed. They're paid chores, Sakura. Mika said to his best friend. All they are jobs that the villagers don't want to do. What do you mean? She asked. Catching the Fire Lord's cat is a constant mission, has been since my genin days. Tsunade said. Painting fences, cutting lawns, running stores, doing dishes. Tsunade looked guilty for a minute, but the genin team she hired had them done in no time and it was 1,000 ryo well spent in her opinion. So while the clones do the chores, we train as hard as we can. In 1 month we'll take a low C rank mission. If you handle that we'll do more, if you can't we'll go back to training and the clones will do D ranks. Mika and Naruto talked silently and both had a grin. Aren't we supposed to do some kind of test, to prove we're a team? Sakura asked. We could, but they are stupid and a waste of time and resources. Our ninja forces would be a lot stronger if the academy was more strict like they were with Rin and Iruka. Tsunade said. I never a bell test or anything. Anko said. Anko, start them with warming up and then run the course around the village we talked about. Sure thing, Tsunade-sama. The snake mistress said. Tsunade stood. I'm going to let the Hokage know you passed my test and that you're going to be starting missions tomorrow. They nodded and watched as she walked off. Anko's grin became feral. On your feet. Move it. Move it. Move it. And hell began as Anko became a drill instructor and they were soon doing jumping jacks, push-ups and then began their run around the village, Anko keeping pace and pushing them on if they slowed down. Hokage's office. Tsunade. The Hokage said, seeing his former student. You failed them. He asked in surprise. No, they passed my test. I have Anko running them into the ground right now. I just wanted to let you know Team 7 is now active and will be starting missions tomorrow. The Hokage grinned and marked it down. Teams 1 to 6 already reported in failure. He said. I hoped Team 7, 8 and 9 would be what I thought they would. The other teams failed. Tsunade asked, sitting down across from him. Bell tests, he said. Tsunade shook her head. How about keeping them as they are and have them trained up and try again in a couple months instead of wasting so much potential? He looked at her. Explain. Well, have Jonin and Chunin continue to train them as teams and chakra exercises and then have them try the tests later. The Bell test is a stupid way to decide on ninja careers. I mean, they have the potential. Train them properly. And then, if they fail, give them over to the administrative ranks to find them jobs. The Hokage nodded in thought. I'll have it tried. You were right about the medics on teams. Already the survival rate of the Chunin, Jonin and Anbu squads has risen 60%. Tsunade smirked. And just think if it had passed when I mentioned it while I was younger. The Hokage nodded. With the opposition in the council removed for the most part, it was easier to get things taken care of for the ninja forces. I've got Jiraiya on a mission with Obito and Kakashi. I decided we couldn't survive a ninja prank war. Tsunade laughed. Well, I know they wouldn't, because the twins have so many ideas. She said proudly. They talked about other things. Tsunade, seeing the time, stood. I best go make sure that Anko left them alive for tomorrow. Good luck, Tsunade. I am proud of you for taking a team. Tsunade grinned before leaving. The Hokage looked at the paperwork and sighed. There has to be a replicating jutsu on these. They never end. Namikaze household. Kushina looked on as her sons were falling asleep at the table. She shot Tsunade a look, but the older woman just grinned. Rin looked tired, but not as badly. Your team pass? Kushina asked. Oh yeah, it was a combination Bell test tracking test. They did very well, Rin said. Ino's got some issues, but with Kurenai, I think that the young Yamanaka will make a fine kunoichi. The three women finally helped the boys upstairs and watched as they were asleep before they hit the bed. Do you need to be so hard on them? She asked Tsunade as they sat down in front of the fire. If I'm hard on them now, they'll come back alive when it matters. The academy needs an overhaul. Kushina nodded at this. Rin and Iruka did wonders with their class, but so many others are letting students through that really don't have the skill. Sensei said that the first 6 teams failed their tests. I gave him an alternative to try and I'll suggest forming them into a village force instead. It would free up Chunin and Jonin for other duties. Kushina sighed. I'm glad you have the boys. Even if they went to Kakashi or Obito, I would be worrying. But I know you're a lot safer and won't take too many risks. What do you mean too many? Tsunade said with a mock pout. Kushina smiled. You have to admit, your pride does get you in trouble, Tsunade Heim. Tsunade pouted and Rin, half asleep, giggled. Just don't take any bets and all should be fine. Hush you, Tsunade said. So, the boys, and their girlfriends, this should be an interesting team, no matter what happens. Kushina shook her head. Missions out of the village will be interesting for you to say the least. Tsunade paused, sipping her tea. Forgot about that. I'm not sure who will need more watching, the boys, or the girls. Rin snickered. Or Anko. Tsunade sighed. Crap. The night passed and 3 went to bed. Tomorrow was going to be long for all of them.